To order the Monday, January 27th meeting of the Norton Charter Commission. If we could please stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, there is nobody here, so I'm going to assume nobody is recording. Somebody on the council is recording. I don't care. Seeing nobody in the gallery, we will skip public comment and move on to the acceptance of prior meeting minutes. I did receive a request if we could make our motions a little bit more succinct, if possible. Just keeping that in mind for the purposes of the clerk having to document them.
And that's myself included. I was
Okay.
trying to type up some of my own motions, and I
Gotcha.
just like.
I think we'll get better at it as we go along.
Yeah.
Calculations that are engineered to be more conservative.
If nobody had a question or a change or discussion regarding the minutes of our last meeting, Monday, January 13th, I will take a motion to accept.
I'll motion to accept the meeting minutes from Monday, January 13th, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous.
Is that the kind of succinct you're looking for?
That'd be great. You could even just say so moved.
Oh, okay.
I'll try. I tried to keep it succinct.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, minutes are done. Okay, we got quite a few administrative items, actually. So, I sent around a few things last night, one of which was the notes from my call on last Wednesday with Lauren Goldberg. The highlight of which is she seems very excited to work with us. She went through her calendar through June and penciled us in for every date that she was available. We do not necessarily have to have her in attendance on these dates. So if I think what we should probably do is put it on the agenda prior to a week she's coming, decide whether or not we want her, and then, allow her a couple weeks' notice if we don't think we're going to need her, and she can reschedule accordingly. So as of right now, she is scheduled to come to our next meeting on February 10th. Then she'll be here on both meetings in March, one meeting in April. May, her schedule is very, very tight because she does a lot of the other towns' meetings. And then she'll be here for both meetings in June. She is going to be primarily responsible for drafting our charter. She has a template available and agrees that given the changes that we're making, it probably makes sense to just kind of start from a template that she's familiar with and has that form of government. She did make a comment that we should go through our existing charter and figure out what bits we want to keep and what bits we want to get rid of, and let her know. In a meeting that she's not going to be here, Sandy will call her following the meeting, give her a 15-minute debriefing, send the minutes, send a link to our video in case she has questions while she's drafting. She'll be primarily responsible for it, but she did say, she may delegate pieces out, but she will have an eye on it. So we talked about the timeline. So I handed out to you earlier 2 different timelines. One is an update of the existing kind of major milestones, and she went through and answered quite a few questions on that. One of the things that is going to be up in the air is because we switched the timing for our election, we actually will not know when our April 2021 election is until January 1st of that year. So I've highlighted all of that in pink as it's now, I scratched out the existing election date, put in a new one TBD, and then all of the dates in pink are also TBD based on what that date winds up being. If it's the first Saturday in April, we've got significantly less time than, if it was at the end like it was originally scheduled. So based on this and having to have our preliminary report and a draft of the charter into the Attorney General's office and published in the newspaper by April 21st of this year, she agreed that July 1st is a good target date for draft charter completion. And based on the second schedule, the one that has all the pretty colors on it, Sandy actually created this, and I thought it was very, very helpful. So where are we? So line 36 in the major milestones, you could consider this a pop-out of that line 36. And the decisions to make, this will grow as we kind of go along. One of the things that I talked about with Lauren was there wasn't a lot of precedent with respect to towns switching from open town meeting to town council, and precedent with transition plans. I think there's only one or maybe two to look at. So she said she would definitely help with that. Basically giving us what we actually need to think about and decide, but we'll set the dates and the timeframes for it, which was good. So we had sort of kind of just by default identified kind of 10 major sections that were going to require some discussion. Looking over that, I think we've determined that we'll try and handle all of those decisions within 2 meetings periods, and mark them off and move on. And this will be a good way to identify if our schedule is slipping and if we need to build in another meeting. But based on this, if we adhere to this schedule, we will be done with our decision-making by May 4th. I think it's somewhat optimistic, but if we hit it, that's great. Which would put us in line for a mid-June, charter draft, final draft for her to come in June, present it to us, kind of tie up any loose ends. We have to start talking probably after that point in May about the preliminary report that needs to accompany the draft. And we can get on that. So it looks like we're doing well, timing-wise, thanks to Sandy keeping us on schedule. Anything on, let me see what else we had from Lauren. She did say we have a recall section of our charter that's using old language, and she said she's going to work on rewriting that now. She was also going to make recommendations for which boards and committees and commissions should be referenced within the charter. That was one of the discussions we had, and she listed out like 6 of them, rattled them off in my notes, and I can't find a rhyme or reason. Some are elected, some are appointed. I am assuming she'll have a good argument to make with respect to those, and we'll let her get into it. And that was about it. The one thing that she did want for us to keep in mind, she said she sees this quite a bit, especially towns going from some form of town meeting opener representative, was you can't think of the town council as a super board of selectmen. They're strictly the legislative branch. The town manager wields the executive power within the town, whereas right now the board of selectmen has that authority, with the town manager being the chief admin officer. So she said and that's why she had sent out that guideline, that 2-page sheet that I had sent out subsequent to that meeting or that call, which we can use as reference and I think will be helpful. But that's what she wanted to make us aware of what exactly their authority is and is not. And that was about it. Okay. So that's the discussion with Lauren. We talked about the major milestones. We talked about the decision timeline, talked about motions. I don't know if everybody saw it yet today, but we did receive an email from a resident, and was very excited to see it. And the question was, and I think we're going to be hearing that a lot, so I wanted to bring it up and kind of state it for the record. And I also want to encourage anybody who happens to be watching from home, if you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to come in or send an email. Our email address is on the town website. So the question was, if there's going to be an override, who will get to vote on it? And she went on to say, or he went on to say, I personally would definitely like to get a vote. So I'm going to just state for the record now, I'll probably have to repeat it quite a few times. Overrides are governed solely by Mass state law. The state has all of the regulations. The Charter Commission has no control over that, and state law dictates that any override has to go to a ballot vote by all members of the town at an election. So, in the event of an override, the town still votes on an override. The Charter Commission cannot change that, make any amendments to it. It is set by state law and we cannot touch it. So regardless of what type of government we have, it will always go to a ballot vote by the town. Any questions? Okay, all right. I think that's it. So why don't we get into the discussions. So we had two questions, two or three, actually, quite a few that were pending from last week. And one of them was the number of members that we're going to have sit on the town council. One of them was how they were going to be elected. And a third was related to term limits. I think we broached all of those last week and tabled them for further discussion this week. And ultimately, ideally, a vote would be great. So, I don't know where we want to start. Anybody have a recommendation where they would like to start?
I'd like to see 5 members on a precinct and 2 at large.
Okay, so 7 total.
Right.
Okay. All right, so originally you were thinking 9, now you're down to 7. Do you have a reason for the change in philosophy?
I think it'd be hard to find 9 members. It doesn't bother me if we went with 9, but at least 5 from the precinct.
Okay.
The only problem I see with it, if we do precincts and stay with 7, I just have like you were saying about the ability for people to actually be voting on elections. You stagger them. Because you're only going to be voting for your precinct and then possibly a staggered at-large member. So you'd only technically be, I don't know how that math works out there if you do it, but basically you may not be voting in 1 year.
Yeah,
Right,
there would be years in which you would not vote for a town councilor.
But I don't think we can get caught up in like what you vote for in a particular election. Everybody is still going to have a say in their precinct and their at-large councilors, whenever it comes up.
I just think if we,
So-
I'm not saying I'm against that 5, but I think if we do
Yeah.
5 precincts, we almost have to go to 9. And the only reason I say that is we're trying to encourage people to get out and vote and stay active and all that other stuff. By telling people, oh, you don't have to vote this year, I think that's a recipe for disaster. Like, I'm not against the 5. I just think that if we're gonna go 5 of the precincts, you have to make it 9.
The other point that was brought up that I got in the minutes was that if we had 7, you'd only be voting for 3. So that was, I know, the concern that was raised. I don't remember who raised it at the last meeting. So I made a note of that.
At least with the 9, you're gonna vote for 5. You're at least in the opinions, exactly, voting for a majority.
I'm still at where I was last week. 9 with 5, with district or precinct and 4 at large.
I get the argument. I still think we should go precinct 7 or 9. I'm not really sure. Like, I get the issue of not having 9 members and what do you do if you don't get 9 people? But I also think that's not really an issue that'll be solved with going at large either, right? You could still end up with having to fill a couple seats and distinguish how you're gonna do that. I like the notion of the district because I think it's just more representative. I think that if you have at-large, you could very well end up with people from heavy on one district, not heavy on another, and I'm not sure if that's representative of the town. I think voting for, like, the argument was, one of the points that I get is that you're only voting for like 3 people when your vote is up, or you may be voting 4 or 5, depending upon 7 or 9. And I know that's how we do it anyway. We vote for a very small percentage in terms of our representatives, but I also think that I still think it gives people a sense of self-interest in terms of having that point person and that person to go to. And I also think that one thing we've heard a lot of from people is that they don't necessarily have the time to be as civically active as they would like to be. And I think that's okay, but I don't think that means they want to be any less represented. So I still think it's important to have that representation, to make sure they know that it's there.
I'm going to point out, in one of the things that I sent around last night, with regards to the compromise, in the top box was the town data. In the last 14 years, there have been no candidates from Precinct 1. There have been no candidates from Precinct 3. There have been 4 from Precincts 2 and 5, and only 1 candidate from Precinct 4. So I'm going to go back to Sandy's argument last week. What happens when nobody runs from that precinct? What do we do? And I would view that as a complete failure of the Charter Commission.
I do think it's going to be easier for people to run if they're running for their precinct to represent their precinct. Those are the, then they're running because that's what they know.
Do you really?
Rather than
Sorry.
having to run townwide, when if you only know your neighbor, like we talk about, people don't think in terms of precincts, but I do think they do, especially when you're in the school district. There's my side of town where all our kids went to the LG. Like for years, those are the only people that I knew. I didn't know anybody from the other side of town. So while we might not be thinking all the time in terms of where the precinct lines are, I do think that we know our neighbors better than we know other people. The town is not tiny, and we're growing, and we're not that diverse right now, but I hope we will become more diverse. And I was struck by some of the information that was sent around saying that you can get better diverse representation if you have a mix of precincts and at large. And I think we need to be looking ahead at what we want this town to look like. And I still fear that if it's just at large, with not addressing the question just yet of what we do if somebody doesn't run, I think if we do all at large, I think people are going to feel disenfranchised.
Okay. I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to say a couple things. One, if I took a random poll, nobody knows what precinct they live in.
But that's not the point.
They know their immediate neighbors.
Yeah.
They don't know who is in their precinct. I am also going to counter with, we do not have a very diverse population in this town.
Which is what I said, yeah.
There is no delineation of by any metric that you can think of. It's pretty much we are a very white middle-class community. There is no quote-unquote wrong side of the tracks. There is no economically disenfranchised precinct within this town that would be underrepresented if they did not have a precinct counselor.
But we are a growing town, and all the statistics say that people are moving further out of the city. They're coming, closer to 495. This is going to be a
Do you think they're going to
continually growing-
congregate in one specific precinct?
I have no idea, but I do know that people do tend to know their neighbors best, and you might not know where the district line is. I don't know anybody who knows exactly where the district line is in any town, if they're just a resident. I just feel like, I know that the people that I've talked to have said that, they would like a representative from their neighborhood.
Can I also just play devil's advocate a little bit on the precinct thing? Again, I'm not totally set on exactly which way it is, but just for an example, if you live on Hampshire Court, which is off of Dean Street, which is on pretty much the Rehoboth line, okay, that's precinct 1. You're also precinct 1 at Seminary Way, which is the one right by the VFW, and you're also precinct 1 by Scott Drive. You're talking, if I were to range, somewhere between 3.5, 4 miles away. Now, I'm gonna go out on the limb here and say in the next probably 10 years, Scott Drive is gonna have a serious involvement in what's gonna happen in the center of town. They're gonna be directly in the middle of it, and so is Seminary Way. Whether it be improvements, whether it be jobs that come up, whether they try to redo the center of town, the sewer project's going through them, which is probably gonna change the face of this town in 10 years. I'm gonna go out on the limb and say the people on Hampshire Court, while they're still in precinct 1, are not going to have anywhere near the same concerns as precinct 1 in Scott Drive. Because we don't have the area of a block of, 1 block or 2 blocks or 3 blocks where you can say, these people are in that area. Hampshire Court, and I'm just an example, but Hampshire Court and Scott Drive probably can't be in 2 different parts of this town, and they're still considered precinct 1. And I know for a fact, this is a fact, that Scott Drive or Seminary Way is going to be drastically affected by decisions that are made in this town that are already in the works. There's a sewer project going through, and there is going to change. Hampshire Court's not going to be affected by projects in the next 10 years. I'm going to go on the limb. It's a strictly residential area. There is no commercial zoning there. They're on Dean Street, which it's highly unlikely any sewer project is going to go down there within the next 10 years. They're not going to have the businesses. So it's tough to say that somebody on Hampshire Court is going to have the same involvement with Precinct 1 as somebody on Scott Drive. That's my argument against it.
Yeah, I'm leaning against it myself. I think in some regards, it's an issue looking for a problem. We don't have the problem now. We don't consider ourselves by neighborhoods. I know people in my neighborhood, but the next neighborhood over, I barely know them. So to me, I don't. But I know people on the other side of town, so I'm not sure I buy into that. I don't. I like the idea I live in Chartley just because I like the name, but other than that, I really don't have any attachment to it per se. And I think when people are asked about it, what they prefer, I think they tend to prefer intuitively the concept of a district council, like someone representing you. I think intuitively it makes sense. If you don't, like we have done, spent a lot of time talking about it, but I'm not so sure that once they realize that if someone gets elected on a different council and you just don't like that person, you have no say in voting for or against that person, I think that's their opinion, I think, shifts.
Right, and if it's a precinct that has underwhelming poll numbers, that person could sit forever.
Forever, right. So that's because I know personally, I was walking in when we started this 6 months ago. If you'd asked me then, I would have said precincts. But now, having been through this, and I think we can, so that's my opinion. I think that intuitively that's how people think, but I'm not so sure they really, until the education process starts, you start talking about it more, I think, and then I think they start to realize that they're not so sure they like it. So that's my opinion, but that's how other people perceive it, but that's how I perceive it. So I'm opposed to the precinct concept. Because I think it also opens up the question of term limits. and I'm not really a favor of term limits, but I think I would prefer term limits if we went to precincts, because if some representative from a district that I have no say over gets in and sits there for 20 years, then I guess I wish I had a term limit.
But it's 1 out of 9, or 1 out of 7. I mean, you're talking about, if you're talking about not liking
Who's to say
one
1 out of
person,
9?
you know, like,
There could be 5 I don't like.
Oh, that could be bad
Ki-
with at-large, too.
Can I just
But I can vote for it, but I can vote against
You
it.
can, but that could be at-large, too. Just, you know, for me, a couple points, like, I'm looking at some of these things a lot differently, I guess. For one, I don't want to set this commission or this council up for failure, but assuming that we're not going to get people to run, I look at it as more as encouraging people, more motivating in terms of giving them some self-interest, giving them some ownership within a region or a district, precinct. I keep using those words. And just because a lot of people, and I think that you're right, I think if you were to take a poll and when people go in to vote, they always have to look at that chart in terms of what district they're in. They do. But I don't think that means that they deserve representation any less than not knowing where their precinct is. And I don't just look at it as an issue of what's going on in the neighborhood and what needs to be addressed in their actual neighborhood, but I think that people feel comfortable having a point person and having a person, you know, where do I go? Who do I ask? If it's anything, even about another district or precinct in town, or anything about the town, who is their person, their go-to that they can pick up the phone and call and ask? I know that if it were elected at large, they could do it with 9 or 7 people, and they could do it now with the Board of Selectmen. But we all know it just doesn't work that way, right? If it worked that way, there wouldn't be a problem. And I do disagree. I do think it's a problem. I think that what we've heard from people is an issue of communication and accountability, and I think that this is just one piece where it gives people another mode of communication, a person to go to. And like I said, it may not be about what's happening on Seminary Way, or it may not be about what's happening in their district, but they may want to know something about what's happening on another side of town. And that's a possibility too. I think it's a way to, you had mentioned something about knowing your neighbors, but not necessarily knowing, you know, the other side of town as well. But it may also bring in a way to, you know, get to know what's happening on the other sides of town as well. And that is more or less how I'm approaching and what I see it, really as a form of representation, providing that equity. Now, what to do if no one runs? I mean, I don't want to say we're going to have 9 or 7 elected at large and everyone's going to run. You know, what happens if everybody runs from one district? How is that equitable and fair to other people in another district? Is where my biggest concern is.
I want the counselors to be thinking about the town as a whole. I do not want them worrying about getting voted out in the next election because they voted for something that their precinct views as unfavorable. I want them to make that decision based solely on the health and the betterment of the town and not have to worry about their precinct representation.
Well, and to add to that, I think it's not only just like the cynical, you want to get reelected, but you should be representing the people that elected you, right? So you should be representing
Everybody.
your precinct, right? Well, I'm
Well,
saying if you're
everybody.
a precinct counselor,
Yeah.
you could easily see that as your role is to represent your precinct. Because that's who elected you. That's who, put you in that position. That's who you're supposed to represent. So I feel like that gets back into, even if, people have the best intentions, even if they're not concerned about getting reelected, they still want to speak for the people that elected them. They want to represent them.
I think it's cynical, though, to say that they're not going to be considering the interest of the entire town just because they're from a precinct.
I don't think they're going
Because
to,
they
but
do,
they're going to be
the oath
worried
they're going
at
to take
re-election.
is for Norton. And I think a lot of, most of the people who run want to do good by their, their town, their state district, or, whatever, the whole area that they represent. So I just think we're giving short shrift to the people that we, who would decide to run.
Just one more example of this precinct thing. I know I keep going back to it, but to me, it's just, it's glaring. Leonard Street, okay? We all know what happened down on Leonard Street. We all know that they're going through a huge change basically change the whole outlook of their street. Even numbers on Leonard Street are in precinct 4. Odd numbers are in 5.
Bay Road's the same way, yeah.
New Taunton Ave, which really isn't that long of a road, it doesn't start until you get all the way down. Odds are in 1, and it's not like evens are even in 2, they're in 5. So literally, the houses facing each other are voting on 2 different people. I mean, that is so anti-neighborhood that you're literally voting for 2 different people to try to represent the area that's within maybe 30 feet of your front door. I mean, I think that's a very, very valid point of why precincts, and I'm not saying it happens all the time. There are certain things, certain precincts that are, Chartley area number 1, okay, you can call that kind of a thing. But there's also those areas where like Hampshire Court and Scott Drive are not considered Chartley, and
Do
they're
we
not.
know why that happens?
because of the
Like,
numbers.
No, I understand, but somebody made a decision to do it based on the numbers. So do we know why that was done, to split streets like that?
I just think that if the streets are split, and believe me, there's Freeman Streets, I mean, Bay Road, Birch Street, there's,
Goes along with our zoning.
I mean,
It goes along with our crazy zoning.
yeah, I mean, there's,
But I mean, we have a census coming up, or is it possible that the precinct lines are going to be changed because we have a new,
They've been this way for
I mean,
but they don't have
a
to be.
while, yeah.
Bay
I
Road,
think only if there's a major shift in population do they get changed.
Bay Road, East Main, Freeman, small roads like Gary, okay? Number 1 only in precinct 2. All but number 1 and 3. So the first house on Gary has to be in one precinct, but the rest of Gary, like how do you go and have somebody that's representing you and literally number 1 is in a different precinct, but the rest of the 8 or 9 houses on that road are in a different precinct? It doesn't, the more and more I looked at this for the last 2 weeks, the more and more I see that. I love the idea, or the rose-colored glasses, of being able to go to somebody and say, they represent my best interest. I just don't see how when these precincts come in the line, and the way they're drawn, and it's not gonna change. I mean, it may change a little bit with the census, but it's not gonna change drastically. How do you all of a sudden say that somebody on odd on 1 New Taunton Ave and then even on 5 is representing anything to do with that road? Where, in my opinion, New Taunton Ave should be looking at, I don't want to vote precinct. I want to vote somebody that's going to do what's best for the town, and hopefully I can explain my position when something comes up, to explain why it affects, for instance, New Taunton Ave. Leonard Street, there is no better example than Leonard Street. That 2017 town meeting drastically affected that neighborhood. It affected Leonard Street, it affected Janet Street, it affected Birch Street, it affected East Main, it affected all that area down there. So you're telling me in one area there could be literally a different precinct than Leonard Street? I mean, 4 and 5, they're split. Odd, it just,
So,
We haven't heard from you, Denise.
I know. I think I'm more concerned about the number than I am the style, and the reason being, I want to see it be successful going forward, right? So I think the number of 7 makes it easier for us to be able to get 7 councilmen. We know we have a problem with people volunteering in this town. It's hard to get people to step up. The style doesn't concern, I think there's pros and cons to both. I think there's definitely negatives to both, and I think that you can try to implement things that will help fix those issues that we're concerned about in either scenario, right? In the district scenario where you don't have someone run for district, there are things you can put in place where you can appoint someone temporarily until the next election, or there are mechanisms you can put in place to kind of correct those. And in the at-large scenario, I kind of like Laura's suggestion of you have 7 at-large, but maybe only 2, at most 2 per precinct or something, so that way you're not getting it all weighted in one particular area. The issue that I have is that I have zero doubt that we've got people in every precinct of this town that are capable and able to do the job, but people aren't motivated until they're upset about something. And so the issue is that when they get upset about something and they get motivated, then if you're doing all at large without any kind of controls over that, then you're gonna have all the people who are upset about the issue that are gonna be wanting to run for it, and it's all gonna be like an issue-based kind of council, which is what I'm concerned about, right?
Well, they have to win that seat. Just because they pull papers does not mean they win.
I agree. And I also think that there are some aspects of if it's just all at large, it becomes just a big popularity contest about who you know, who you have the most touch points with, right? If you at least spread it out a little bit more, then it makes it easier for someone who maybe doesn't have, maybe who's brilliant and has a great mind, but doesn't have, you know, kids in the school system or in the sports system who knows all these people or whatever, or hasn't been part of the town fiber forever, gives them a chance to at least make a run for it. So I actually kind of lean towards the suggestion that you made the last meeting where it was all at large, but a maximum of 2 per precinct in the at-large mechanism.
The problem that we had, and I'm happy to revisit that, I sent out the compromise there. Problem we're going to have is you cannot have staggered elections with that compromise. You can't stagger them, doesn't work. I've run the numbers like 17 different times, you can't do it.
The only counter I have to that too about like what you were saying, Denise, about like the precincts or at large being a popularity contest, I also argue that the precincts will exactly create that. So if I was a person who grew up in a precinct and lived in a precinct my entire life, possibly raised in the same precinct, and then I moved to the same precinct, Charlie is a perfect example of that, where there's people that have lived, that grew up in their parents' house, and then now live in precinct 1. So I would say that that opens up to a popularity contest of, well, I know everybody in precinct 1, so I'm going to automatically get elected, and no one's going to run against me because everybody knows who I am. So I think there's, and again, I agree with you, I think there's pros and cons to each one, but I don't think precincts is solving the popularity contest thing. I mean, it's politics. Sometimes you win because you know people and you're well-liked. Other times you don't. Other times you run on basis. It all depends on what the voters do. But I think giving the power to the voters to decide who gets in there, I think is the only way to at least keep it where you're deciding this. How many people want to come out to vote? If you want to have, you know, 1,000 people, 1,500 people come out for this election and choose, then these are what the voters are choosing. That's my only fear.
So keeping in mind too that it's what we think that was going to be sellable to the population as a whole, right?
I agree.
So what do we think that people are going to want to see as a whole in this community? And again, I'm less married to the idea of either at large or whatever. I think the 7 is probably a little bit more important for longevity because we have a hard time getting 5 Board of Selectmen now as it is. Of mine, you know, almost double that to 9.
Yeah, I keep going back and forth between 7 and 9, thinking, 7's not enough, 9's too many.
Yeah.
But I'd probably err on the side of caution and go 7, but I'm not heart set. I don't have my heart set on either one. Okay.
Can I just bring up one
Yes,
point?
go ahead.
I feel like the staggered would help with everybody, you know, there's a hot topic issue, and everybody from one precinct runs, because the most you're going to be replacing in one given year is 2 to 3. So it's not going to be all 9 turning over, or all 7 turning over.
I don't disagree, but things don't move fast in this town, so it's not inconceivable.
Several couple cycles.
It's not inconceivable to say a couple cycles, you could still get all the hot topic, you know.
Well, let's hope this all works, and that with a town council form of government, things
Move faster.
work much more quickly.
Yeah,
that
that's
our
true.
goal?
That's true.
That's the intent.
That's true.
So, yeah. Okay, so, if I've read the tea leaves correctly, I don't know where you sit.
I'm on the fence.
Okay. We have decided to vote this evening. Depending upon how you vote, we may result in a tie, and we will have to defer to next week.
Okay. You actually only have to eat.
Yes. So. All in favor of at-large town councilors? Raise your hand. All in favor of precincts? Raise your hand.
Well, a mix.
Mix.
Not
Sorry,
just
yes.
precincts.
A mix with the precincts.
I'm undecided.
We have made the decision to vote on this evening.
All right.
We will defer. If we result in a tie, we have to defer until next week.
All right, Laura, the pressure is on you.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you in this position, I'm really sorry. But I think, is everybody comfortable that we have exhausted all of the deliberations with regards to this
Yeah, I
topic?
think we're bringing up the same points.
I think we are. Okay.
Well, I'm also not comfortable, looking at her and everybody, waiting for this tiebreaker.
I know.
I'm not. We're stuck.
Wait her out.
I'm not comfortable with putting her in that position and just staring and waiting. I don't know that it's gonna change next week, but I don't think just sitting and waiting and putting her in that position of you have to do it right here, right now.
But we decided we were voting on this evening.
The only thing, if we don't, I just don't see how much more we're gonna be able to go forward unless we start getting some of these things nailed down.
So,
Well, you can also abstain if you.
so let me ask you a
voted.
question. I'm trying to think of something that's kind of in the middle, right? So I know it's like, that you can't say no more than 2 per precinct, because that makes it so fixed, so you can't do it all in one.
Yeah. Do you want to pull out the compromise that I sent around last night?
No, so my suggestion is, can we say, that I don't know if this is gonna be any better, but can we say that the councilors have to be elected from a minimum of 3 of the 5?
What does that achieve? It's no
Some
better.
spreading it out, just
Okay.
some spreading it out, right?
But based on what we're looking at right now, the predominance of the candidates are coming from precincts 2 and
But we-
5.
We can't
We can't base it on that, because
though.
we've
We can't, but-
not looked for candidates from different,
True.
Right, I would agree. It can't
I'm not
be-
sure, but I'm not sure if,
This town is changing. People
Tell
turn
me what-
over, and
tell me what 3 achieves.
to your point, though, I was going to, if we do go with just at large, I was also going to suggest no more than 3 from a precinct, which might get us, at least 3 precincts.
Oh,
from-
I thought you were saying no more than, okay.
No, it's
Sorry.
a different way, no, I'm saying a slightly
Similar-
different
similar
way,
kinda idea, yeah.
but sort of not necessarily 2 where you have to have one from every precinct, but at least spreading it out.
Even if we had 7?
Honestly, I hadn't thought about 7.
I think if you had 7, you'd probably, if you
Yeah.
want to achieve what you're looking
Yes.
for, I think would
So
probably
if it was,
look at
I was
2.
thinking a 9. If
Yeah.
it was 7,
2?
it might be 2, yeah.
So just to, again, play devil's advocate to that. So you have, let's just say that you're gonna have 9 in that theory, okay? And you have 9 people that wanna run, right? That are committed to running, that take their papers out, that wanna campaign, that wanna go out and get the people's votes. You're basically gonna potentially say to somebody, sorry, you can't because there's already 3 in your precinct that's running. And their argument to that, is, it would be my argument. Well, how does Scott Drive represent Hampshire?
they can still run.
Yeah, it's not about running.
It's not about running.
Or winning.
It's
So
about-
you could have 9 people run, but only 3 could win.
Okay, so same thing. You have 10 people that run. You have 11 people that run. The town is deciding that these 9 people they want to run. You may say to that 9th person, sorry, you can't be the winner because,
You may say to that third person or fourth person.
If you have to
right,
make
based on
that, if you have to
Yeah.
make that decision, and that tells me that you've got 4 or 5 from the same precinct already as council, that's an issue.
but
right?
that would be my argument, that I believe that we're not putting this in, if we're doing those little things and doing these compromises and all this other stuff, we're doing the exact opposite of what the town wants to do. They want we need to represent the people. In my opinion, we either need to make a straight decision on whether it's gonna be at-large or with a precinct at-large combo. If you start adding these things in, you're restricting the townspeople to decide who they want. Because even if they do want the specific person, there is an actual chance the person may not win because they're 2 or 3 of them. I just think let the townspeople decide on whether or not that is. We need to make a decision.
I don't want to overcomplicate it, so I'm going to say 7 at large, and the reason I'm going to say that is because listen, if I'm a voter and I'm seeing that they're all coming from the same precinct, every election, then I'm gonna be pissed, and I'm gonna try to mobilize some people to let's make a change, get someone else on the ballot,
Or I'm not going to vote.
or I'm not gonna vote.
Depend, we have a lot of voter apathy here, and if you're gonna set them up to have a town council that is, again, that is not gonna feel like it represents them, we're gonna continue with this voter apathy. I think you have to have something in place that makes sure there is a cross-section of town represented on the council. If we're not going to do precinct, I think we have to do something that makes sure that those at-large counselors are at least slightly spread out. If we end up with a town council of 7 people from precinct 4, precinct 5, that's going to be a disaster, and that's not going to be what they sent us here to do.
Why would that be a disaster, though? I mean, do
It could be,
they really? I mean, I
it could
don't even
happen
know
right
how
now,
my
it could happen
selectmen
right
live
now
in
in Board,
town.
it could happen right now in the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, it could be today.
It could, and that's why we're here. We were elected to change the situation.
Right.
Right, but,
You know?
we didn't identify that
But
as an
the
issue.
But nobody has said in any of the surveys, not that I've seen, not one person has ever said, the Board of Selectmen is all run by precinct 3.
But they have all said, I wanna have a voice.
But that's what I'm saying, is if the opinion is I want to have a voice, okay, what your voice is that we are giving you the ability to vote whoever you want in town council at the elections come up. You're going to have a crack across it. You don't like somebody because they're not representing what you think the town is, then vote them out. Mobilize your people. Have someone else run against them. But to sit here and say that we're not giving them a voice, I think the precinct thing is you're cutting 4 precincts out, not giving them a voice on it.
But
That's, no, I think that's the completely wrong perspective.
But I also, can I jump
Yeah,
in? I
yeah.
also think that we can use these arguments either way, right? They can work for either way at large or district. It just depends on how you're going to look at it.
What your perspective is.
Right. So they can go either way. I just think in terms of, the district lines and the precinct lines and how they fell out. I don't know why they fell out that way. I have no idea. I just still think that having every voice heard is the most important. I'm not even talking about what's happening in the neighborhood. I think that being that communicator, that the counselor needs to really be that personal connection between that government and a group of people. Right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be, do for me, do for me, do for me. I don't see it as that sense. I see more of a problem arising if everybody is from one precinct or from one area. I see you have a group of people who aren't being represented. Even if they're not even standing up and saying they're not being represented, they're not being represented. It's not equitable. It's not fair. And if we're going to do this all on voter apathy and people aren't coming out and people aren't doing this, I think we have to, for me, I'm looking at this as a motivator. I'm hoping it motivates some change. I feel like we've started to see that change come about with this commission, with people voting for it and they want to change. So I'm hopeful that it will encourage more people to run. And so I'm not falling back on the argument that we can't get 7 people to run. I don't want to do that. I want to hope and think that it's going to provide some motivation. And I too, like you mentioned, I expect counselors that I vote for to be representative of all the towns as well, right? I'm not just saying people I represent from District 1 need to represent me and represent me only. I'm more than aware that I'm part of a larger town and a larger community, so I also expect my counselors to represent the town as well. I see it more as a communicator, as that personal connection between them.
Can I just play cynic for a second, too? I know you don't want to ever talk about people being cynic, but let's remember it's politics and people are cynic, okay? This entire thing was just, the argument is not in my backyard, okay? Anything that's ever come up in this town, whether it be projects, new improvements, anything, it's what directly affects me. People don't see and look at it and go, wow, this is a great project. This is going to be great for town. The first thing they do is this is ruining my property value. This is ruining my area. I don't want the traffic. I don't want the problems. So they immediately go to that defense mode. What's there to say that if you're going to have, let's say we do the 5 and the 2, which that's why I still think we need the 5 and the 4. You have 5 precincts, okay? Politics works the way they do. what's to stop me, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I go to you and say, you know how much this is affecting one, okay? This is the Leonard Street project, okay? This is directly affecting me in this thing. Help me out, because when this comes out, we'll help you out. Now, we've made ourselves a majority on the 9-person council, because the other 4 at large are voted out of it. Where the 9 people at large or 7 at large don't owe directly to the thing. What they should be totally focused on is what is the best interest of the town. We have gone over and over this for the past, for as long as I live in this town. It's always been not in my backyard. And people never look at it as, this is a good idea. I know it drastically affects me, but for the other 18,000 people that it doesn't affect, this is a great thing. People complain about that. We've argued about that. It's been some of the things brought up in the survey. We have to do what's best for the town. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But putting them at large at least focuses the people's attention on when a vote comes up, is to look at it from a totally perspective thing of, I'm running to help the town of Norton. I've volunteered this position to do what is best for Norton. I don't owe anybody in a precinct. I don't have to go and answer the precinct of why I voted this way. Because I'm telling you, if you think a person who really wants to run and then get reelected is going to go in that meeting and make a vote that is totally against the precinct they're running in, you are out of your mind. I'm sorry, but it's just not happening. The minute that happens and the minute that catches out in precinct 1 or precinct 2 or precinct 3, they're done. So it's political suicide, where if you're in precinct, if you don't have a precinct and you're at large and a decision comes up and you weigh the outcomes and you do your research and it's a decision that's best for the town, you can at least go to the people and say, listen, I know it was a bad decision for Leonard Street. I know it was a tough decision for Bay Road putting a solar farm up. But I believe, after reviewing all this, for the other 18,500 and something people, this is what was best to move the town forward.
So I know you're gonna say that I'm an anomaly or whatever, but if that was me, the council person, I don't care if I get voted out, if I've made a vote back for the town. I've got a full-time job. I'm not getting paid to be councilman. You wanna vote me out? Thank you.
Yeah.
But I'll be one other thing, okay? One of the arguments, okay, that's been going on with the Board of Selectmen, okay, is the Board of Selectmen right now don't have a true voice of what their opinion is. So for instance, something comes up, whether it be an override, whether it be a main project, whether it be something in town, and nobody knows exactly where they stand, because the fallback is always town meeting. So one of the answers to that was to get rid of town meeting and go to a town council. When the town council's up there and they actually make their vote known on what they're going to do, it's going to be easier for somebody in town to go, I don't like how they're voting. I don't like what they're doing. I don't know. I want to know where they stand. And to be honest with you, I don't care what precinct they're in. How do they stand on this decision? Now, if I'm looking at it from your position, that I'm looking at it for the best interest of the town, I'm looking at that person making the decision, and they're saying, nope, I don't want this. Well, why don't they want it? Where do they live? It's public record. They live in this area. They're not making the best decision for the town. I don't want them in there next time. Because in my role, as my vision of a town council, that you're doing what's best for the town.
So everybody should be working towards, which I don't think we've had a good master plan probably in years, right? But whether it's Board of Selectmen or a town council, whatever, the master plan is what's supposed to be the guiding document. So it's not necessarily about what my personal interest is, it's what does that master plan say that the town should be moving towards, that the town should be doing in the future, 5, 10 years, whatever.
So how does but that's the perfect point. How, a precinct goes totally against that. If part of that master plan, for instance, is to change the center of town, and you live in that area or in the center of town, and you don't want that project to go through. Now, I'm gonna go on the bet and say that there's a vast majority, probably 2/3 of people, that if you actually got a full poll to say that we need to change the center of town with traffic and or businesses, people would agree that that's right. So what I would want my council to do is to go up there and say, yes, this is a good idea for the 17,000 other people in town.
What if all those center of town people are the ones that are running for council at large?
That's when you put it in the people, you put it in the power of the people to decide whether or not, like you said, I'm not letting this happen. We are rallying the troops. We are going to get more people involved because we can see what they're doing and what they're doing. Is that an answer?
And if it's staggered, they only have potentially 2 or 3 seats available.
Exactly.
And I can see that.
They can't take the whole board over.
I hear your argument against precincts, but that doesn't, it doesn't sound like it would hold true for the idea that you would require a cutoff, a maximum from each precinct, because you're still being elected at large. But you're making sure that the end result is a spread of people.
I think staggered do that without having to put this extra language in. I
Right.
think the staggered
And
does
the
that.
compromise.
I don't think the staggered does that.
The compromise,
The staggered doesn't make sure that there's a broad representation across town.
no,
Right.
but it does mean that, a contingent can get on and take over a
Yeah,
council.
when I was suggesting like a maximum of 3 or whatever it is from a district, I wasn't suggesting that only the districts that impacted could vote for that person. It's still voting
Right,
at
it's-
large.
right.
It's just if the top 4 candidates with votes happen to all be from the same precinct, only top 3 get in, and then number 5, who's from a different precinct, gets in.
Yep, all right.
Maybe.
So with that, you have to keep in mind.
Is that even legal?
I mean,
It is.
It is
Is it?
legal, yes.
It is. So you have to keep in mind, one, if we have that compromise, staggered goes, which means, yes, an entire contingent could take over the council if there's a hot issue.
So
Two,
Why does staggered go? I don't understand that.
you can, there's no way to arrange it, because if you've got staggered terms, you have no idea who's currently sitting in that seat. You don't know who's going to be able to pull papers and who's going to be able to fill that seat.
What do you mean? There's 2 seats available, or 2 to 3 seats available for each
Yeah.
election.
So,
You know who's gonna be up for election.
no, but you know who's currently sitting in seats already. You may get to a point where there's already 2 people sitting, and nobody can draw papers for that from that precinct.
No one's stopping you from drawing papers, so you can draw papers for whatever you want.
But
And if
the
you're already-
seat's not up for election if it's staggered.
Are sitting there and.
So those 2 aren't up for re-election.
Oh, gotcha.
And they still, have more of their term to fill,
I just think we're doing the exact opposite. If we put these restrictions in, we're doing the exact opposite of what the townspeople want us to do. The main argument here is going to be, when we present this to the town, is that we're taking away people's voice. Whether it's right or wrong, they're gonna say that because we're taking away town meeting. And now we're gonna restrict on who they can actually put in those seats. That's gonna be a very tough sell when you say to somebody, well, take away town meeting, right? Because I'm a cynic, okay? I want town meeting. I want you to take away town meeting. And then you're gonna tell me that I can't put the people I wanna put in there because the numbers don't match up? I think that's even worse of a disaster than doing straight precincts. I think it needs to be one or the other.
what?
Well, we need precincts.
I agree with that last point that Kevin made in terms of one or the other. Like, I agree that politics works the way it works. It just does, and we all know how it works. However, I think that the assumption that politics, as we talk about how it's gonna work, not working, working that way only in precincts but not at large, I think is not an accurate statement. You're gonna have the same politics that you're gonna have at large that you're gonna have in the district. So I don't see that as solving the issue at all. But I do agree in the terms of, like, I feel like the compromise is just getting convoluted in putting in too many points, and I think it is, I think if we're gonna say you can elect at large, but we're restricting this number, I think that is restricting. I'm not going against my own argument, but I think that we need to go one or the other. I don't think that, I just think it gets like that compromise, I feel like it's convoluted, and we are telling people that.
It would be very hard to explain this to the public. The other thing that you have to be comfortable with is the person who got the lowest number of votes out of a whole pool of candidates could wind up with a seat. And
Yeah, I do agree with Janie, one way or the other. We either choose one or the other, this concept.
But I disagree with the notion that the person with
Way
the
too
lowest number
confusing.
of votes is necessarily the worst candidate. That person's just not as connected.
But
Or they're not liked.
it's a democratic process.
What an election.
I guess it could be either one, you're right.
But that's a democracy. That's why we vote.
Yeah, this is supposed to be a democratic process.
Whether you want to call popularity, whether you want to call the people like them, whether you want to know what the last name, that's the part of the democratic process. We do it every day. That's how we vote people in. I mean, if we could go out right now and pick who, the president of the United States would be the best person for the job, it might be a different show here. But that's not how it works. It works on who's voting for who and who wants to have this person. I mean, we all know that a person that's going to run for these precincts may not be liked in town. Their policies may not be liked in town. But because they're the fourth person, because the three, or the fourth person can't get in, the fifth one that the town adamantly said, we didn't like your policies, we didn't like what you were running on, we didn't like how you approached this candidacy, had a very low number of votes, and he's automatically, or she's automatically put into there because the very well-liked fourth person happened to be in the wrong precinct, that is a very, very bad disaster. And that is a definite possibility with the way some things work in this town.
But the only thing that and you mentioned representative and representative democracy. I mean, we live in a representative democracy, and I just think that having a precinct, having a representative from a precinct is a form of a representative democracy where people who don't have the time or the inclination or for whatever reason they can't participate, they have a representative for them. And for me, that's my biggest fallback. So when I vote for this, my biggest issue is it representative? Is it equitable? Does everybody have a say, a voice? And I think that's the most important thing for me.
And just to counter with that, of the representation, I think that's a perfect argument of what goes on in Norton right now with our state's reps. We are a split district. It is a disaster. I feel like we're the forgotten child between our districts because we're split. We're literally drawing an imaginary line through town of who represents on this side, who represents on this side. So literally, you could have one person approaching a state rep that lives on this side of the road that has to go to another state rep. This is what, where if we had a state rep that was representing us for the entire town, I would agree with that argument, that we could go to them and say, my state rep is this person, and I get to email and call them. But yet, if the imaginary line gets drawn up, I'm not sure exactly where it is, but just say it gets drawn up South Worcester Street. So what, this side emails this guy or girl, and this person emails this side. So when you go to the state rep in the House, make sure you vote this way. The people, it's happening to us right now on the higher level. And now we're asking it to happen again on these roads, to split it and to say, well, now I want you to have 2 precincts to have the interest in this entire road.
And I don't know why those lines are.
I don't either, but
there's
that's a
three of
problem.
them in one town.
There's more than that. There's multiple ones.
I don't know why they're drawn that way, but they are. I think that's a whole other commission.
I keep going back to the fact that representation by a precinct or underrepresentation by a specific precinct has not been identified as a problem to this commission, and precinct is slapping on a solution to a problem that didn't exist.
I disagree. Just because they didn't use the term precinct doesn't mean that they don't care about.
But that's
the
what
we've heard about
precincts.
communication, and we've heard about some people like town meeting because they have a voice, and I just feel like we're taking away more of that voice if we don't make sure that there's precinct representation, so that you have an across-town representation. I'm not suggesting that they're only going to be concerned about projects in their precinct, but I think you need a cross-section of perspectives. So.
Just for.
I think where the town
I mean, we're talking around in
homogeneous as
circles now,
ours,
and I
any
don't know how
precinct
else
is a voice.
I can explain it. I think, everybody's made great points, and I don't know.
This is a
that
very
talking about it
small,
is,
homogeneous town.
It is now, but we can't be making decisions based on what it is
There's no more
right
room
now.
for that many people.
Sure there is.
You saw the numbers in terms of what they're expecting. I mean, we have hit our boom. Our boom is over. We'll add, 500, maybe 1,000 over
I
5
just-
years.
Just so we know, there's.
I mean, I don't know that anybody's changing their minds
But we
at
have-
this point,
okay.
so.
The Board of Selectmen did a study for the, the town hall and the senior center in terms of the population growth estimate. It's like negligible over the next 10 years. The senior population will grow, but the overall town size growth was negligible.
Well, even as a town grows, it doesn't mean it becomes more split, like in having special areas that have certain
Yeah.
interest. Like the town of
Yeah.
Franklin is a good example. That's a town of 40,000 people up there. And I'm somewhat familiar with it because I have a lot of relatives there. And I'll tell you right now, nobody in Franklin has any idea what precinct they live in either. There's absolutely no defined barriers like that.
We have.
So I don't think it's just because the town is growing doesn't mean it's going to become more or less homogenized. And I would argue that if it's already homogenized, it's probably just going to stay just like that. Unless it's not going to be a big influx of
there's not a lot of
certain type of
room
person.
for people to even come in at this point.
Yeah.
We have,
I don't know if I think it'll grow, probably. still
Yeah, oh, there'll be growth.
grow. I see
Knock
no
on
reason
wood,
to
there's
think that it's not
growth.
gonna continue to be similar growth.
Right, and I have no reason to believe there's not gonna be more diversity within the town
Right.
either. And to make that statement, I don't.
But are they going to congregate in a specific precinct that would be underrepresented?
I don't have the answer to that.
we have
Then we're
big,
addressing a problem that does not currently exist.
I disagree.
I disagree as well,
So
but
I guess
we
that
might
my,
just
my
have
big,
to.
my big disagreement with what we're talking about in terms of representation, and maybe it's just my perspective, maybe it's my neighborhood, I don't know. I don't feel like my neighborhood, my area, at all in any way represents me. And, I'm sort of the odd duck in my neighborhood and in my area, and I think that, I feel like that, again, geographic region is not necessarily who I relate to, who I feel like represents me. So I know we keep talking about, we keep using the word representation over and over and over, and then that's what precincts, a counselor from a precinct would give me. That would not give that to me at all, in any way, shape, or form. I want people who are aligned, but I want to hear what their policies are, what their plans are. I want to hear what positions they're going to run on, and that's how I want to make my decision, not based on where they live. And so those are the people who are going to represent me, the ones who I agree with, who, have the same opinions as me for whatever reason. So I guess we keep throwing out representation, and that's the part that I disagree with it. I want representation, I just disagree this is the way of getting it.
Another thing that is, on a personal level, I could care less which way you go, because I know that I'm an active observer of the town politics. I know what's going on, I know how people are voting for the most part and things, and I pay attention, and I know I'm gonna make the best vote. The fact that we're having this much discussion on this topic means that we should be prepared when we go to the public to have this much discussion with the public, regardless of which path we choose.
Yeah, this definitely needs to go into the talking points,
Yeah.
definitely for public outreach.
For sure.
All right, I don't want to apply pressure. Janie made me feel guilty. Would you prefer that we deferred the vote to next week to give you time to think about it some more?
Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, it was, 4-3 before? I think it's gonna end up being a stalemate anyway, because I think if I'm thinking about what's gonna be a better sell for the public, I think it's gonna be the district with 2 at large. But let me stew on it, so that makes it a stalemate, so either way, we're gonna push it to next week?
Yes.
So let's push it to next week and then.
Okay. Can I make a suggestion that when we get here, it is just a vote?
Okay,
There is no further discussion on the matter? We're not.
Unless it's new.
we've discussed.
Yeah, if you have something,
We've said
yeah,
our
if, you've come across some guidance, some
And I
additional
just-
information that you think would be helpful.
And I just want to make sure that the options for choices are is it just 5 and 2 or 7 at large, or is there any combination of some compromise we discussed earlier that's off the table?
personally, I think for me, the number all depends on how we're gonna do.
Yeah, for me too.
Because if the vote is falls precinct-wise, I absolutely adamantly think we should have 9.
I think she's asking, is she considering the compromise, or is she only considering the at-large or the
Oh, okay.
district?
Correct.
Like,
Okay.
have we taken the compromise off the table, or is that still on the table?
I just
as
want
a
to know,
third
so I
option?
can think, so I know what I'm thinking about over this next 2
We've got to
weeks.
reopen staggered. We have to jettison staggered elections if you want to consider the compromise.
Well, and I think we need to consider not just the compromise, but other ways of accomplishing what we want to accomplish. So not just what's written down here,
Yep.
but other ideas.
Yeah, I
So
think
if
if
it's
people-
at large, then we can think of a compromise, but it doesn't necessarily have to be this one.
Okay.
I think if people can work out the logistics of those, because, that was one of the things in the model charter, it said something about no more than whatever, but they didn't say how that was gonna
How to
happen.
accomplish
Right, it's
it,
like, okay, this, that's great.
Well, they also
How does that
recommend
work?
4-year terms, and everybody, turns over at the same time, or was it staggered? I
I
forget.
think they were recommending staggered.
Yeah, but they were
2 and 2.
4-year terms and very small board sizes, or council sizes.
I would just encourage everybody to look up that precinct list, because when I did this week, that's what kind of changed me on it.
All right, so I'm going to give everybody homework to think about it. If you have or come across, if you have a different compromise that you would like to propose, I'm going to suggest that you email it out to the commission in advance, so people have time to think about it and look at it and give it some thought, and to do your best to be prepared to vote with minimal discussion at the next meeting. 15 minutes tops. Because we're an hour and 10 minutes in and we haven't decided anything.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to be a slave to the timeline. I think all discussion is good, but we're going around in
But I do think it
circles.
was valuable, and I think you made
Yeah.
a very good point that I wasn't even really thinking of. Like, if we're having this much discussion with 8 people here, we're going to have to address that out there too. So that was something that I wasn't even thinking of. I was just thinking of the 8 of us in here, but you're right. I mean, no matter where our vote falls, we're gonna have to have that
Defend your
discussion.
position.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest decision, I think, deciding what the legislative and executive branches look like is the most important decision we're going to make. So I think it's
Yeah.
good that we're taking so much time to.
I think it's important
Flesh it
to
out.
also keep in mind, just because we're putting forth a recommendation does not necessarily mean it's final and it has to stay in place forever. Somebody could realize,
What do you mean?
meaning in the next charter review, they could say, hey, all we've got are, if we go at large, all we've got is representation from 2 precincts. They can switch it to a different methodology.
Through bylaw?
Yeah. Charter change and a bylaw.
Election too, if it's charter.
Yes, but just what we are proposing is not final. If it turns out it does not work, or it is not working, we are not all omnipotent, we can't see the future, we don't know what's going to happen. Just keep in mind, it's not permanent.
Right, they might need another charter commission to make a change like that, though.
No, only form of government needs a charter commission.
Okay, not the makeup of, okay.
Nope.
No, and we could also put in there like a purposeful, in so many years, we want a charter review committee. Like, not
Yeah.
wait 10 years, but put a charter review committee
Yeah,
in
3 years.
3 years, and have them reevaluate.
Assess
So
it.
It's more,
You could do 3 years for the initial and then go to a 10.
right, right.
Just so this, what we
See
did.
what's working, what's
Right.
working.
Exactly.
I mean, I think that's the thing I kept hearing from North Attleboro when they were presenting it was that there's nothing that's gonna be perfect about this. We're not saying this is the perfect charter, that we're just putting forward, our best recommendations, a lot of compromise going into it, and then at the end, if the people feel strongly that something isn't working, then you can make that change later on.
Okay. All right, so we are going to table number of members. We are going to table elected how by precinct at large or combination. We're going to table probably term limits because that's going to weigh in. So let's go to the town council president. So we've already decided how they are chosen. Let's go to the role of the president.
Oh, I couldn't tell, but some of these are lighter, that means we already,
Yeah, on the agenda?
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
so just for our own internal purposes, so you could see which ones we'd already hit and which ones we have not.
gotcha.
I was going to say I didn't bring our charter, but we don't have a town council president, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so in reviewing a lot of the town council charters, there's some very common language, and then there's a few interesting things in there that we need to discuss. Are we all in favor that the town council president is going to be a voting member of the town council with the same voting powers as the town council?
Yes.
Meaning no veto power?
Yep.
Everybody's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Should we vote on these individually or once we reach?
I mean, it seems like if it's not a big contentious thing, can we just vote on whatever
The
we
final
give
is.
Lauren and vote on that piece of it,
Okay.
right? Would that be
So,
easier than-
kind of go
we
through each of the
will-
pieces. If we're all in agreement, make a motion to,
Accept
Do all of them.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So all in favor with the president being a voting member with the same powers and no veto power? Unanimous?
Got something done.
Okay. The president presides over all meetings of the council,
Yep.
Yep.
sets the agenda, can be with the advice of town council members. I think that's a nice, doesn't have to, because they do set the policy of the town council. One of the things, the model charter had this, and a couple of charters that we read had this, but amended slightly, presents an annual state of the town message. The model charter just makes a reference to that. In the two charters that we've read with town council form of government, the town council president does it in conjunction with the town manager.
Yeah, I
And they
think
are
it's-
jointly tasked with presenting the state of the town.
Yeah, I'm not sure I see why they need to do a separate one. Usually it's by the executive to do that, so I don't feel strongly one way or another whether they need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the practice of doing an annual, state of the town is a good practice to
Yeah.
have. But I agree, I think it's more executive
Like
than.
the town manager would do
Yeah.
that,
Okay?
but I don't have strong feelings either.
Yeah, I'm fine with either one.
I think with is a good combo, just because it gives kind of both perspectives and gives everybody in town kind of idea of where everybody's at with the council and with the executive.
Yeah.
Hopefully the executive's doing what the council's directing him to do.
Well, yeah, but it could just kind of show what the year has kind of held and what the town council's been, voting on and why and whatnot, and, the town manager can also go into what's on the horizon. I just think anything where you join it together like that's probably going to be beneficial to the people in
Yeah.
town.
Yep.
And if there is disagreement, it's a way to say, if the town council has set their priorities through the budget and the town manager decided not to expend the funds on that priority, then, you can figure out what the disconnect is.
And if that is a public, and it's going to be a public hearing where they have that, and everything, that gives the ability for more people to go and actually ask questions to both these people and say, why are we not on the same page here, if those things are happening.
I mean, Carrie, that was an interesting point that we just made when you said, hopefully the town manager's doing what the town council says.
No, sorry, that's not exactly what I meant. I meant the
Well, I-
priorities should be aligned because the town council, holds the purse strings and,
Okay,
is
yeah.
going to set their priorities through the budget.
Right.
But, and the town manager
Yeah.
then.
No, I wasn't questioning how you
expense
said
it.
it.
Yeah.
I just, it was,
Sorry.
but I've been actually thinking about this whole concept of the executive versus legislative a little bit. It is confusing.
It is.
Yeah, because you said,
agree.
Lauren said that
And then
the
I
town
guess-
manager sets the priorities for the budget, correct?
Not exactly.
That's what I.
That's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
They set the priority by actually spending the money and doing with the money, what
Yeah.
the town budget says, but the town budget itself is approved by the town council, and they're setting priorities by how much money they're putting into each agency or each department.
Yeah. So they're
So-
appropriating money for something, but they can't force the town
Right.
manager to spend it.
Right.
But the town manager
Right.
would come forward with a budget proposed, but they can move stuff around or.
Right, the town council is going to ultimately approve the budget or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but that happens now, and we don't necessarily, it's the executive branch that sets the priorities, not the legislative branch right now.
Right.
That's
We-
Board of
Well,
Selectmen.
we do
Well, we're
by
the legisl-
approving, we do by
Right, but we
approving the
don't-
budget, but we don't have much say because of the nature of open town
We're as
meeting.
voters serving the purpose of what the town
The
council
legislature.
is.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is
Yeah.
that we don't set the priorities.
Right, well,
That the.
By approving it, we do.
Well, no, you
I
don't
would
set
disagree
but
with
you
that.
don't set the priority, you just. you
We
either
approve the
it or not.
priorities.
Yeah.
Right, we approve,
Right,
but we
but
don't set them.
people try
But
to
that's setting it.
move money from one budget to another, right? But it becomes messy, that's why the town meeting doesn't, because it's hard to do, right?
But ultimately, the way the town manager spends the money is 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 the manifestation of the priorities, so, if.
The town
he decides
manager
not
does
to-
the budget with the town accountant. That's how they come up with a budget.
That's how he does it now,
And-
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the finance committee, and
Right.
it goes to the selectmen.
Right.
Right, but I think ultimately, you want accountability between the town council and the town manager, so the two branches do both play a part in
The
developing.
town manager's still
budget.
gonna do the budget with it.
Well, I'm just doing the budget, which is the mechanicals of doing the budget, then there's but a budget at the end of the day is a political document, right? I mean, it's where the money goes. So that is where the town council, in theory, has
Well,
Right.
say.
The town manager, he's the one of the brains, that's what we hired him.
Yeah, but I elect the people to the town council to direct the town manager where I want to spend the money. Either I don't want to spend money in the schools, I do want to spend money in the schools. That's what you're, in theory.
But the town accountant knows where the money's gotta go. He knows how much money we
If
have.
he doesn't decide if we're going to hire.
Well, he
5 more
shows the
teachers,
figures to the
fire
town
5
manager.
teachers. That's not his decision.
He figures it.
Well, that's still, by law, that's still the school committee's decision.
Yeah, but let's think about this, but let's think about this. If the town manager's doing the budget, okay, and presents, after speaking to the accountant, or whatever you want to call him when we change his charter, and he presents the budget to the town council, and the town council maybe has a disagreement on where the budget's going to be spent. Well, who does the town manager answer to? The town council. So why would the town manager then turn around and commit career suicide, potentially, by saying, absolutely not, that's the dumbest idea ever, and I'm not appropriating those funds? I'm not saying it won't happen in small cases where it says, you just can't do this because the money isn't there. Physically, I can't do it. But if the town council, by the people who voted him in, is saying, we don't want to do that, we want to do this, the town manager is going to have to work in coordination with town council, or when the contract's up, he's not going to be working here no more.
I mean, it doesn't mean that the town manager and the town council never disagree. There's going to be
I'm not saying disagreements, but what I'm
right.
saying is that they're not going to adamantly, if we're looking at our representation being town council to push the best course of action for the townspeople on the budget, the town manager would be absolutely insane to go in front of the town council, present the budget, the town council makes suggestions or possibly adjust a few things, and the town council goes, absolutely not, I'm not doing any of that.
All right, I feel like we've gone down a road that's for
Yeah.
future day.
Rabbit hole too deep.
I'm going to bring us back in.
Can I ask, I mean.
Joint state of the town.
Lauren's coming to our next meeting, right?
Yes.
Because I would like to get more clarification on her statement where she specifically said that the town manager, not the town council, sets the budget priorities.
Okay.
Yeah, because
So I would like to hear more from her about
I would too,
that.
because I guess when we talk
Okay,
about.
but that doesn't, I mean, the state of the town is not necessarily just the budget. It is what the priorities are for the coming year, and that could be related to the master plan, that could be related to infrastructure. It's not just the budget.
It could be stuff that has just been completed,
Yeah.
it could be.
It's a review of,
bunch of-
here we are, here's status of projects.
Right.
The overall health of the town of which the budget is a part of. So
I guess I'm still, though, I think she has had some interesting points when you talked to her, and I would just want to hear more about that, about, in general, the
Okay.
change now. I mean, I don't have a problem either way, but I'm just kind of
But it's the
trying to
que-
wrap my brain around the fact that, what is the role of the town council? What is the role now of the town manager? So when it comes to things like who should be presenting that, where that comes from, who's setting, I guess,
Right.
who's setting I think that's where we need to hear more from her.
Yeah, because I'm in favor of a joint message personally.
Yeah.
But when I think about what she's said,
Right.
it's not reconciling in my head. I don't follow that. That's why I'm having a problem. I'm all for joint message, but just based on how she's saying it's structured, that's not making a lot of sense. It's not quite making sense to me.
I personally just think it was the ability for them to say that, again, I'm assuming what she's saying, but I don't think what she's saying is that the town council is going to be involved in the day in and day out structure of the town and how the budget's formulated. They're gonna have a general message of saying, when the town manager brings the budget to them, we're gonna have a back and forth on what our priorities are and what they should know. And the town manager should kind of know that before he's setting the budget, because he's been meeting with the town council every week. So they kind of have set those priorities, and the town manager meets them by a certain margin. I mean, all things aren't gonna be able to be met, but they have a back and forth.
Yeah, it's just, that's not how she worded it.
Well, I could also see
Yeah.
her saying that thinking we are understanding the concept, where in actuality, from Carrie's perspective, it just means you can't force him to spend the money, and that's why he has the priority.
Right, he's in charge of the day-to-day.
Prioritization.
You know,
Yeah.
he knows his departments.
That
he
it's not
knows-
necessarily the planning of the budget, or the not forecasting, planning for the next year's budget. He sets the priority by what he spends the money on.
To me, it would be like the equivalent of a CEO or CFO going and meeting with the Board of Trustees. They may set all the agenda, they may have this meeting, the Board of Trustees goes, absolutely not. In my opinion, the CEO, CFO is not gonna turn around and go, sorry, Board of Trustees, I'm doing this anyway. Well, the CEO, the CFO is gonna be looking for a job
No,
next week.
and I 100% agree with that.
so let's-
I'm just hung up on how.
Yeah, let's table it for,
My point.
let's table it for next week.
I apologize, Laura, I gotta go.
What are we tabling?
Whether the town council president with the town manager presents the state of the town address.
I don't think we have to table that, because I think we were
Well,
all
there was
set.
some discussion as to,
I thought it was just the question about who was responsible for the budget, but the question is
that's a
really-
completely different
Right, but the question-
day's
right,
discussion.
Their concern really was about who presents it, I think.
Yeah, no, I raised the question only because I was confused with the language from Lauren,
Lauren,
sorry, versus the ability to have a split message, and that was my only point.
Yeah.
I was-
I don't think-
I was just confused.
I don't think it is a joint message conveyed jointly, not a one
I get-
versus
yeah,
the
yeah,
other.
yeah.
But are we
Yeah.
okay with the state, I mean, I think we can narrow that down, though. Are we okay with the actual state of the town being presented for two
By
people?
both.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. I would put it this way, like.
And the budget thing
I
would be
don't-
tabled
You know, I
for
don't
next
quite
week.
understand the point. I'm more than comfortable voting on this issue.
okay, so is everybody okay with both of them jointly presenting it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so not tabling.
Do you want me to come back or call in?
If you do not mind, that would be great.
Which one come back? It'll be about 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right.
I don't know, yeah, I don't think she meant, yeah.
Oh, hey, Peter, I can see you.
But.
I read it, and I
found-
didn't quite understand why she
I
said it that way.
found some- Like, I found a lot of this raised more questions in my mind too, so.
Oh, this list?
Yes.
Yeah.
It really did.
Well, I also found that the further you go down on the list is, I think there's some pieces missing, and I think the further you go down the list relates more to town meeting forms of government.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, because, let's say, under the executive function, fourth from the bottom is act as other boards, such as Board of Health, Board of Water Commissioner. I think that should have parentheses, Board of Selectmen. I do not think that the town manager becomes the commissioner for those.
No, those departments, though, are part of the executive branch
Okay.
of government. So he's the head of the executive branch of government, but all of the town departments that he is in charge of are all also part of that branch of government. They are not part of they are not policymaking, they're not, well, they might be narrow policymaking, but they're not the legislative branch of government.
Okay.
So I think that's why they're there. So he's the head, but he is not he does not embody the executive branch.
Got it.
It's a
Okay.
big shift in thinking.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is,
Shift in
because
thinking, and you gotta,
town council and and Board of Selectmen, they sound like, okay, we're replacing Board of Selectmen with
Correct.
town council, but that's not the case,
correct.
right?
So
All
there's
right.
a shift in thought that you gotta keep straight.
So let's keep going. Let's hit the easier ones. They shall perform all of the duties specified by the council. Seems to be unanimous across the board and recommended by the model.
Sorry, we're still talking about council president.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Shall be recognized as the head of city government for all ceremonial purposes and by the governor for purposes of any military law, but shall have no administrative duties. Seems to be unanimous across the board and suggested in the model charter. Okay. Perform other such functions as may be assigned by the charter, by ordinance, by vote of town council. Seems to be unanimous across the board. I'm assuming everybody is okay with that. appoints the members and officers of council committees, whether standing or ad hoc. Are we comfortable with the president doing that? Yes. In the absence of really nobody else. Somebody has to do it.
So he would appoint, for example, if we
There was,
did-
let's say, we said there has to be a finance subcommittee, they would appoint the representatives of the town council
Right.
that would sit on that subcommittee.
Right. That's what I figured it meant.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's worth.
Or if they
discussing.
created an ad hoc committee to look at some particular issue, project, problem, he would appoint that ad hoc committee from members of the town council.
Yep, thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
So, I don't know if it's worth discussing or not, but, so that's similar to what we have now. We have one person appointing the finance committee.
Yes. It is.
But the finance committee, the difference is,
Get elected.
if I'm correct, the finance committee is really absorbed into that council, so they're appointing, right? You're saying that the president is appointing that subcommittee from the
If we
council.
decided to implement, if we decided to put within the charter, there will be a standing finance subcommittee or a finance committee.
Or advisory.
It would be made up of potentially a portion of town councilors, if not all town councilors. Could be also lay people, it could be people from other areas as well. But the person responsible for voting the town council members to that subcommittee is the president.
So, I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit, but. the,
Yeah, I've thought
so-
about it, but I don't know who else you'd
Yeah.
assign to do that.
So if the town council president is, you perceive as, let's just say, he favors the fire department over the police department. Just, I'm going to stay away from the schools altogether here. He will probably, being a politician that he is, more than likely would appoint people who probably have the same belief, or saying that the fire department is more important than the police department. So,
My hope
would
is
have-
that he would ask for volunteers and appoint accordingly. And if
Yes.
lacking a volunteer, say, David, I'd like you to take care of that for me.
it very well could be, I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
And-
But it's
and the
similar, I
diff-
mean, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, the difference is every member of that committee, that the ad hoc committees, are elected. So they're also accountable themselves for the decisions that they make. Rather-
Absolutely,
which-
I agree, 100%
Yeah.
agree with
Yeah.
that.
Is
So it
there
is
any-
different animal, but you still, within that group, there will
Yeah.
probably be some that lean one way or the other on
Yeah.
certain issues, so.
But this is more the internal working of the council versus another committee that's going to be making a decision on its own. Everybody else is going to have to vote for it.
No, I agree. It's
I
one-
look at it as like, just,
Logistics.
Yeah, one of the.
administrative.
One of the subcommittees that Lauren had recommended that we suggest town council creates is a bylaws subcommittee and a rules subcommittee. So basically a subcommittee that creates the rules of town council, and a subcommittee that, is responsible for, getting the bylaws updated.
Is there any way to, my question would be, is there any way to have that wording say that it'll be, I don't know, discussion between town council on who's on that board, for instance, like, if someone comes and says, because I agree with you, I think at one point someone's gonna say, yeah, I'll do the subcommittee for the finance committee, and he or she of the town council's gonna say, yep, you're in. That's what I assume is going to happen. But is there a way to have it like, look, we're gonna have a discussion between the 7 or 9 of us, whatever we decide, and, we kind of make a vote that these 3 are gonna be a part of it? Where it doesn't have to take one person to dictate or tell, I'm taking it out of everyone's hands, you're doing it, for those reasons.
Right. Yeah, I mean.
I'm just saying like a nomination
Yeah.
process, like if
Yeah.
I'm here, if I'm not, say I'm not the town council, and I know David's got a background in finance, he's qualified to do something like that type of job, he's good with numbers, and I say, I want to nominate, David to be part of the subcommittee. Somebody makes a motion, the council can approve, that's together, that David serves in that committee. Barring that, if that doesn't happen, the town council can step in and say, look, I'm looking for volunteers, but if not, I've got to appoint somebody to this.
I think if we're going to have a town council president with some of these administrative responsibilities, I think they need to have the authority to appoint subcommittees based on
I agree with you. I just hope-
if they're setting the policy of the town council, then I think he or she also needs the authority to appoint what subcommittees they need.
I would just hope they would do some of the things that we're talking about, is,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, I guess the counter
Point,
argument.
and then maybe
yeah.
a vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't want to, if David's willing to do it, and I go, you're doing it.
Because I know-
That's not, that's not
And a
fair.
rules committee could come up with that, like, once they create their internal rules for
Yeah.
town council,
Yeah,
they could
fair
decide
argument.
that that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we give them the latitude and let them set their own rules.
Yeah. Well, I will also play the counter argument. I mean, they elected that president.
Right.
True, true.
Yes.
True.
Right.
And they can unelect him next time around, so, I mean, that's.
Yeah,
the counter
it's a
argument.
one-year term, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess too much with their internal workings, because
Yeah, you're
right.
they're
Yeah.
going to have to work stuff out themselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
let it
Lauren was
dictate
very,
Some leeway
Ah.
in
Yeah.
terms of how they're gonna
Yes.
just run their,
I forget how she had said it, set the.
Exactly.
like that.
I forget exactly what she had said, set the, don't
the
set the
tone.
rules.
No, but they set the tone.
Yeah,
right.
don't set the rules, set who makes the rules.
Oh, right, what she was advising in the charter, yeah.
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 Okay, have we exhausted that discussion? Is everybody in favor of, where is it? Sorry, lost my place. Town council president appointing members and officers of council committees, whether they be standing or ad hoc.
Aye.
Everybody's good? Unanimous? Okay. We don't have to deal with how they are elected. We've already decided that. We've already decided the term. Do we want to determine that the vice president is elected in the same manner as the president?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Now we get into some of the, so there were a couple of things that the model had brought up as being role or responsibility of the president. I didn't see it anywhere else, and some of them are a little. So one of them is they represent the city in intergovernmental relationships. It seemed very broad.
Oh, yeah, so like,
Yeah. I was thinking of things like Serped and regional.
right.
I think that's bigger in other parts of the
Yeah.
country, too.
Okay.
I mean, we're kind of,
Yeah, there was no reference to it in any of the charters that I had read.
I think we can let that work itself out with the rules. and all
Yeah,
that,
okay.
so I don't
So
think we need to
too.
get
That
into-
could be bylaw or,
Yep.
yeah.
Another one that I didn't see anywhere that they had recommended was assign, subject to the consent of council, agenda items to committees. So they're the ones that are setting the agenda of, but it is with the consent of the council, agenda items to committees.
I'd almost leave that to the rules too.
Yep,
It's such a small council,
it is.
whether we're talking 7 or 9, I feel like.
Okay. One of them that was on here as well that we did not see in any of the charters, appoint with the advice and consent of council members of citizen advisory boards and commissions.
That's usually what happens, if you have a government body, as, appointing somebody, but I don't know if we need to spell it out in the charter.
Okay. Killing it. Okay, now we get into the weird ones.
Those weren't.
There was a couple of charters that I read called for the town council to call for 2 public hearings annually. One was for public input on policy, and one of them was for input on the master plan and budget.
Definitely the latter.
I'm all for
Definitely
it.
what?
The latter.
But do we,
But is
so
that
what does that mean?
Again, is that the responsibility of
The charter.
the town manager or the president of the town council?
Well, the town council is charged with representing the people.
Yep.
And so I think it is appropriate that they invite the people to let them know what it is they want to see in the master plan, and especially
don't
the
we-
budget in particular.
But we have a master.
We do, so this is where I'm getting confused.
Yeah,
is
it's-
because planning board has a master plan developed, and I'm not saying we would have a second one working on other pieces. We should have a single master plan.
Yeah, definitely the budget, though. I think I feel like the master plan has like its own process, like, and it doesn't have to be brought up every year, right? It's like
No, I
every
mean,
like
it's just,
5
I
years
think,
or
I
something,
think
isn't
the
it?
issue with the master plan is just more keeping, like, following it.
Yeah.
Right, and not so much, you're
What-
not gonna have a chance to have input on that, because it's gonna be set for however many years, right? It's not gonna
Yeah.
be.
Right, and I think certain state grants might be tied to having a master plan and
Yeah.
what's in it.
We don't
but-
have to require this at all. It
Yeah.
was found in 2 other charters as being the role of the town council president. We can choose to ignore it and not require it whatsoever.
What if
I did like the idea of having a hearing on the budget.
Okay.
Um,
Right, but we,
Rather than sort of
well, hang on, 'cause
let the citizens founder and try to figure out like what's going on.
with respect to the finance and the budget process, that's something else, and Lauren has already recommended we build in within that 3 different public hearings. And I forget what they are, and I don't have my notes. One with respect to the, whatever FinCom, without a FinCom, the town council. One from the school level, and third, I forget, but she had actually recommended 3 public hearings with respect to the
Okay,
budget.
that's,
Given that, I think that might be overkill. I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to maybe have one, at some point right after the council president is voted in for input on policy and what the town wants to see them working on in the coming year.
I-
If we wanted to do it at all, and I'm not saying we have to.
Shouldn't that be more part of the budget, process and that piece of the charter? And not necessarily just the president, but also, that the town manager's gonna come into that, right? And
Yep.
so I think that's where that will all get defined.
Okay, so I'm gonna, sorry, unless anybody is in favor, I'm
just
gonna
have one-
scrap it.
I just think that if we leave the 3 in there with the budget perspective is fine, I agree.
Yeah.
I just think there can never be enough of these type of things where you give the ability for the people to come out and speak to them.
right,
So-
well, they're going to have to do that for every meeting that they have.
But I understand, but I'm talking about more of a actual, not 15 minutes, or I'm gonna put you on the agenda. I'm talking an actual sit down, go into an auditorium and have a public information thing of meet with the town council for the night.
Yeah.
I personally do not like if you tag it with something, like tag it with a master plan or tag it with a budget. I think it should be we're here, we're just elected the new town council, we want to meet, we want to
Yep.
interact with the people that voted for us. We have a new, change of maybe 2 or 3 people that got voted in. We kind of want to set the agenda of where we're going, we want the most input we can. I don't think it has to be set to A, B, or C or exact topics. The-
No, if you say just policy, that's exactly what you're
yeah,
talking
the budget,
about.
the
Yeah.
budgetary wise thing
Yeah.
would be a different thing of input on where the town thinks budget, but I think and the reason I say this is I think one of the things is going to be, is that with this town council, is that once I vote people in, where's my voice? Okay, so I'm gonna be able to get put on an agenda, or I'm gonna be able to go in front of the meeting for the 15 minutes and voice my opinion, I'm gonna be ushered out the door, I'm gonna be see you later. Where I think if you get a large contingency of people in town, maybe from an area, wherever, can go in front of the town council in an open type formula where it's not a set meeting and say, look, this is what we're interested in. We are interested in getting a 10-year plan. We are interested to see where this is going or that's going, whatever it may be, but it's kind of an open thing and it'll adjust itself as they go. And I also think it leaves an open, if you don't put A, B, or C on it, of what we're actually talking about, if a big project comes up, if something is drastically changing in town and we realize, hey, the 9 people that are on the town council might all of a sudden realize, you know what? This is a major project. We're gonna be redoing the center of town. We need to have a meeting with this. It gives them the ability to call for that. And I'm not saying they don't have that, but it almost forces them to do certain things during the year to meet with the public and give the public more chance to interact with them.
So why don't we compromise and just say they'll call one annually and for input on policy?
Sounds good to me.
Good with that?
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Sorry, one of the things I'm not sure I clarified, there will be a vice president. It is elected in the same manner as the president, and they fulfill the duties in the absence of the president. Okay. Just for clarification. In one town's charter, Watertown, the town council president nominates the clerk of town council. What I haven't been able to figure out is whether they have a town clerk and a clerk of town council, if they are two different,
Those are 2 different positions.
yeah. So again, one of the things within the duties of the town manager is one of the responsibilities will, I forget exactly how it was put, delegate staff to town council. So I didn't know whether this was critical, something we wanted to consider, anybody felt very strongly about it.
I think it's a rules thing and they can work it out within
Yeah,
itself.
it's-
Their procedures and.
Got it? Killing it. All right. All right, here comes the fun one. In 2 of the charters that we read, the town council president or its designee, if they choose not to take it, sits on the school committee. In one of the towns, they get a vote. In the other town, they do not have a vote. Is this something that we want to consider?
I like leaving that up to them to decide. If they feel like they need
But
something.
we need to build it into the charter that on the school committee, then the town council president gets a seat.
Well, I don't want a voting seat for sure.
I don't want a voting seat.
I adamantly don't think it should be a voting seat, but I absolutely think that they should be a part of it. And the reason my only argument of why is that one of the disconnects that we've seen in some of the survey stuff is that there's no communication between the boards. And I think this helps eliminate some of that where, what do we hear? Okay, as we have right now, the Board of Selectmen are sort of disconnected from the school committee, and there's 2 different sides of the town type of thing. Where now we're gonna go to a town council form thing, where are we joining those 2 together? And I think this is a way to kind of merge the 2 together and at least kind of be on the same page with the town council. President can go to these meetings and kind of explain to some of the school committee, hey, this is what we're looking at, these are the things that we have going on, and the complete opposite. The school committee can then inform the town council president, that can bring it back to the meeting. I think it just opens a dialogue between the both, but it doesn't give them a voting power and supersede the voters that wanted to go out and vote for the members of the school committee.
I think it does identify a problem that was raised and that we have identified that there's this rift between town and school. I think that helps to alleviate that to an extent. I don't mind having a liaison from, and even calling it a they would we could have them be an ex officio member as opposed to having an actual seat on the school committee.
I don't know that it solves the problem. I feel like right now they have the joint meetings and I know that they found those very helpful. So this is where I feel like, yes, we want that connection, but I don't know that this is the only way of achieving that connection.
No,
And
but I
that
think it
forcing that in
helps.
the charter, again, as opposed to having them kind of work out how that's gonna happen.
Does it hurt?
I kind of felt.
I think it just puts, again, it's one more meeting, right, for that person to have to go to.
Yep.
That, one more thing that you're asking them to do and taking away from other things that they could be doing.
I personally I think the two of the more important board / is going to be, obviously, the town council and it's always the school committee. And we know there's an issue with the disconnect or the lack of information that's transpiring between that side, if you want to say, a side of schools and side of town. And I think those joint meetings do help, so I would argue that, well, if the joint meetings are helping, it can't hurt that a member is at least present. And again, if it's a town council president issue with it saying, I've got too much on my plate, town council can kind of decide, can you, be the liaison between them? Where I don't think you overstep it is you're not giving them a voting part, you're not overreaching to say that they're gonna be voting on both sides of the aisle, they're gonna be there to basically relay information and collect, go back and forth a little bit.
I guess for me, it depends on what else we're asking all of them to do, how many other meetings, how many subcommittees they're gonna be involved with. If some of the subcommittees would be an education piece, and then again, handle that connection between the two.
Well, I think if you're the town council president and you decide that you don't want that responsibility to be part of the school committee, and you end up, say, passing it off to somebody to say, hey, you're good with this stuff, do you mind? Yeah, I'll volunteer to do it. I would think the logical point would not to be to then sink that person into 900 other ad hoc things, and they're bogged down with 5 meetings a week, where they realize the school committee meets a lot, so does the town council. They know they're going to have a lot of responsibility. That may be their only assignment to. I just think it's so important
Yeah.
in this town.
Well, think about it
for
from,
school.
Sandy actually has made a good point, and I may be joining on with her now. Think about it as, so there's a standing subcommittee for education that consists of, let's just say, 3 members. And not any one member, they don't all have to go to the school. Somebody has to go to a school committee meeting, but it doesn't have to be the same person every single time.
It's not a bad. That's fine. I just think that we have to have some type of.
I think I might
Like-
prefer to have a standing subcommittee for education as opposed to maybe a seat on the committee.
I think one of the big complaints we get now from school committee, board of selectmen, is just, again, how many different meetings they're required to attend. It's not so much the board of selectmen meetings that are an issue or the school committee meetings, but it's all the other subcommittees that they're on. And so especially if we have 7,
Yeah.
and we're tapping these people.
And we're not
onto-
offering to pay them.
Right, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like that's just, I feel like that needs to come up when we have the conversation about subcommittees and all that, as part of that discussion.
It's a valid argument. I would just like to see it, whether it be a strict seat or whether it be through an ad hoc committee or whatever, that there's some type of connection with, because I think that's just some of the big things we saw in the surveys. We need some type of standing, set definition on how the town council and the school committee are going to interact on a day-to-day basis. There's got to be some type of loop.
Is North Attleboro one of the ones who has that, or no?
No, they do not. It's, I'm sorry, yes. So North Attleboro has the school committee seat, but they do not get the vote. Watertown has the seat and they get the vote. And Amherst and Bridgewater were silent on the matter.
My personal opinion is if you don't have a vote, at a certain point, you're just going through the motions, going to the meetings.
Yeah.
And I think it's a form of a substance question.
Yeah, and a subcommittee would be responsible for reporting back. So there is some action to take there.
Yeah, I just, if you're telling me I gotta go to a meeting every other week, me or a subcommittee has to go, but I can't vote. So at the end of the day, everyone in the room knows I have no say in anything that happens at this meeting.
Yeah, you can discuss, you just don't get a vote.
Right, you can discuss, but at the end of the day, you have no power whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
So I just think over time, I think that would just fade out, in my personal opinion. I don't think it would,
Can I just say one more thing?
because I don't think they would find it productive.
The only thing I counter with that is I think that if, for instance, even if you were, say, the member of the town council, or were a part of that meeting, and there was a discussion going on that may directly affect something that the town council would be voting on and whatnot, I think you being there may not, even though you may not be voting directly on it, your information that you maybe that pass along, your discussions upon it, may end up showing some of the members of the school committee or influence some of the school committee saying, well, that's a valid point. That's not happening right now. The school committee's voting and saying and doing what they want, and then all of a sudden it's going back and things are getting turned down and denied, where if the person's there and say, hey, listen, I understand this is an idea, I obviously don't have a vote on this, but just to let you know, this is where this might directly affect something going on with town council. This is where it might directly affect something with the budget that was brought up 2 meetings ago. You may not know this. And then the school committee members, oh, that's a valid point. And that may change and update some of the day-to-day stuff
I
going on.
100% agree with that. 100% agree with that. I'm just saying, over time, if you go and you don't have a vote, over time, your effectiveness goes down, and you're not going to bother going to the meetings.
But I think
That's
the communication piece is the
Yeah.
effectiveness too, like just having that communication piece, and I think what the example you're giving can go back and forth as well, right? The school committee may have something to bring to, you know, the ad hoc or whoever's there can bring something back. I just think the communication piece is the most valuable piece.
I guess my only point is, I'm not opposed to any of that, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all great stuff. I'm just not so sure you can force it.
Okay.
And that's my only point, without,
Well, does
unless
it
you
putting it in the charter require someone to be a member of that committee?
my personal opinion, over time, they will stop going. That's my personal opinion. Because they're not,
For
they have no say in the meeting.
Denise's edification, so we've gone through the roles of the duties of the town council president, and we got into one of the more interesting ones, where there were 2 towns, North Attleboro and Amherst, who, one of the duties of the town council president was to sit on the school committee, or designate somebody from town council to sit on the school committee. In the case of North Attleboro, they do not get a vote, but they can discuss. In the case of Watertown, they get a vote on the school committee.
So the discussion is whether or not they should have a vote.
The question is to whether we have that as a role or a duty of the town council president, given the fact that we have also, while you were gone, had a discussion, and Lauren had recommended that we potentially would want to make a standing subcommittee on the town council for education, where it could be, you know, a body of 2 or 3 members that don't necessarily all have to go to the school committee at the same.
They alternate, whatever.
They could alternate and report back, as opposed to it being a specific duty of the town council president unless he designates somebody else to it.
Gotcha.
And we're in the middle of that right now.
Okay.
My valid point would just be that right now, one of the successes that they're saying they're having is the Board of Selectmen and the school committee right now having joint meetings. Right? We've heard that, right? The meetings are working out, they're getting stuff done, they're at least communicating with each other, going back and forth. If it's working and it's helping what we've failed to do in the past, why are we all of a sudden now gonna go back to separation? So I personally do not care how we get it done. I just truly believe that it has to be set forth, that there's some type of either ad hoc committee, it can be a
Well,
change of members.
We could simply require a joint committee meeting within the charter.
That's fine.
Yeah, actually love that idea. Because I think.
Maybe on a quarterly basis,
I think
they
it
have a joint
accomplishes
meeting.
keeping that communication between the 2 committees open.
Yep.
It also doesn't put the responsibility all on one person to have to go to an additional meeting, because we all know that getting to meetings is a big challenge for people, right?
Yep.
And if you're already at town
great idea.
council and you have to add school committee onto that, becomes too much for somebody. So I think by having a committee that they can share that load, and it also doesn't give additional perceived power to the person who's serving as the president, right?
It's a perfect compromise to do something
Yeah.
like that, just because it keeps the line of communication open. I would
agree.
not want to sever what is working from all accounts, both sides right now, school committee and board of selectmen is saying it's working. There's no point of severing that, just because we're switching to a town council.
Yeah.
I think we're even going to need, in my personal opinion, I think we're even going to need more communication by switching to the town council.
Okay. So I think we are in agreement then, we are not going to make this a responsibility of the town council president.
Correct.
We all
just need to
agreed?
bring it up at a
Yep.
later date.
Yeah, I got to make a list of things to not forget at some point.
So do you just add that as a separate item under legislative branch, that they have responsibility to create a subcommittee?
So what I did was I went through the model charter, wrote down everything that they had assigned, then I went through all of the town council charters and noted where they had accepted the model charter information and had assigned other duties that did not fall within the model charter, and we voted on that. So I'll run down the list of what we are, I think, in agreement on, if you want to go back to any one of them.
No, it's all right.
Okay, well, just for the sake of, we'll have a vote at this point.
Oh,
So, We will agree that the duties of the town council president include, the mayor will be a voting member of city council. They will have the same voting power as any other member and not have veto power. They will preside over the meetings of the council. They will present an annual state of the town message with the town manager. They will appoint members and officers of council committees, whether they be standing or ad hoc. They will perform other duties as specified by the council. They will perform such other functions as may be assigned by the charter, by ordinance, or by vote of the town council. They will call for one public hearing annually for input on policy. And there will be a vice president who is elected in the same manner as the president and who will fulfill the duties in the absence of the town council president. We have already determined that it will be a vote of town council and they will sit for a term of 1 year. There is no term limit on the town council president.
Can I ask that we ask Lauren to draft that and then vote on the draft?
Sure.
And then see if she wants to, or has any suggestions for things to add?
Yep.
I just feel like this is one of those areas that is so foreign, we're not using anything from our charter,
Yep,
that she might have things that
it's not a bad idea, yeah.
should go in, or
When
good
we get it
reasons why
back, we can
wanna-
tweak the
really do
wording
wanna
and
make
just
this
vote on
precedent.
the wording as presented or the wording as we've amended it in the
Yeah.
meeting.
I mean, I don't think any of these are controversial
No,
decisions.
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Everybody in agreement? All right, so let's just say we're all in agreement with these terms, subject to additional feedback from.
Can I just ask one question? I think it'd be more, is there more on the list? Or are we done?
More on the list for,
How the town council operates? 'Cause
uh,
I guess that was the reason.
filling vacancies, that's all we
Okay,
got left.
that was my question.
Yeah, that's all that's left on that list.
Okay,
Okay,
so we're still gonna have.
let's get to it.
I just want to vote
You
yes on
mentioned
cover
it.
vacancies,
Yep.
so I wasn't sure.
Yep. All right,
I was on the list here, I should have listened.
I gotta organize stuff.
I should never doubt Laura.
She's very organized.
Okay, so, unfortunately, I never got to make a grid. All I did was print out and again, we had 4 town council charters to look at. It was a decent random sample. In almost all cases, it seemed to be the control of the vote came from town council.
I'm sorry, what are we?
This is filling of vacancies of town
Town council.
council, yes.
Okay.
All right. So, all right, within Bridgewater, they have 7 district counselors and 2 at-large. And again, just bear with me, because I really wish I had a time to make a grid on this, and I did not. So, counselor at large, if a vacancy occurs in the office of a counselor at large during the first 70 months of a term, 70, in which the counselor was elected, the vacancy shall be filled. Oh, you know what I didn't make a note of is how long their terms are. Sorry.
What's this, which one is this? I can-
Bridgewater.
Okay, look it up for you.
Vacancy shall be filled in descending order of votes received by the candidate for the office of counselor at large at the preceding town election. Excuse me, who received the largest number of votes without being elected, provided such person remains eligible and willing to serve, and provided such person received at least equal to 30% of the vote total received by the person receiving the largest number of votes for the office of the counselor at large election. Town clerk has to certify such candidate and the office of counselor at large to serve for the balance of the then unexpired term. If a vacancy occurs in a counselor at large position during the last 6 months of the term that a council was elected, the vacancy shall be filled by the person at the most recent town election who received the highest number of votes and who is not then serving as a member of town council. So it looks like there is not a percentage requirement to go to that seat. That person shall be certified by the town clerk, serve for the remaining term.
Can I ask a quick question with this?
Sure.
Before we go to this, do we want to table this vacancy until we figure out exactly if we're doing at-large district and how many? Because I think it's gonna, the filling the vacancies is gonna be different. If you, in my opinion, would be different, or way I would discuss it, it would be if we're doing at-large or precinct.
No, it will be
Doesn't
different.
have to be, though. So, for example, Watertown, they did theirs a little different. So all seats, whether it's, and they have a president who runs separately, whether it's the council president seat, a councilor at large, or a district council, if there's a vacancy within the first 12 months, it's filled by special election. Unless a vote of 6 councilors, so 6 out of 9, vote, in which case the town council can then fill it by vacancy, fill the vacancy among the voters by appointment. If it occurs within the second 12 months of the term, so that's 2-year terms, the appointment of, an appointment by a vote of not less than 6 councilors from among the voters, if approved by a vote of not less than 6, a special election to fill the vacancy may instead be held.
I think that's fine if we're not gonna discuss whatsoever that compromise of the precinct. Because where does that fall in with if you can't put 3 or 4?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
That gets ugly.
yeah, so like, and again,
I would table that, yeah.
while I'm against that compromise,
All right, I'll try and do a chart that,
Well, I think part of it too, since we have annual elections, that's gonna change a lot, right? We don't have to wait.
Yes.
You can fill a seat,
More
within a
special
year
election.
at a regular election, because
Yeah.
every election's having, you don't have to have a special election necessarily.
Right.
Your election's gonna be coming up within a year, right?
Yeah.
Versus
And it would just be
the
for a different
biennial
term.
elections, right?
Yeah.
that were-
in that case, I'm more inclined to just go to whatever the last election was, figure out who the person who didn't get seated with the highest number of votes and put that person in, provided they
remainder
wanted
of
the
the
seat.
term.
Or if there is no such additional person,
Yeah, one of them goes in. If that doesn't exist, then they appoint somebody from the town at large.
and again, that's fine if we go back to the other election, as long as we don't have that caveat in there about selecting 3 people in the precinct if we don't choose to do the precinct, so.
I think regardless, if you're having to replace someone like off cycle like that, I think you don't keep them in until the next election.
Right.
Yes, they can
So
run,
it's-
but everybody is specified,
It's a
and they
short-term
seem
fix,
consistent
right?
on that, yeah. So they seem consistent in that if that person decides to run again, they cannot be identified as a candidate for reelection.
Yeah,
I just think if we decide next week that we're gonna vote for precinct and a few at large, then, because we have annual elections, it's an easy fill on how we do the vacancies. If we decide that we're gonna go in a different route, and the vote is for something different, and we are gonna do some of this compromise thing or whatever, I think the filling the vacancies is gonna be a different thing, because we have to have some type of caveat, how we're gonna protect
it can
when
still,
people come in.
It is, but we can still make the decision
It can
with
still be the same
respect to-
mechanism and be willing to make an exception for that short period of time until the next election cycle, right?
Yeah.
It's a short-term gap fix until the next election.
Well, we'll have to,
cycle
we
is.
have to know that, so we can put that in that voting on. I just think we would just.
Right, but the mechanism doesn't change any. So do you want to have to go to a special election?
No, we shouldn't do a special election.
Or
It's an
do you want to
annual-
just draw from the?
Yeah, I don't wanna spend money on a special election, right?
Do you know
So-
what's interesting though? Did you notice in the model charter they had, so they don't think they go to the last election. I think they just either appoint.
That's the one
but
I
if they
didn't grab.
can't appoint within a certain, if they don't appoint somebody within a certain amount of time, then it does go to a special election.
I think with annual elections, we probably want to avoid having to go to a special election if at all
That's
possible.
what we do now, though. Keep that in mind, that's right, we do for Board of Selectmen right now. We have a special election if there's a vacancy.
I'll be honest, I didn't have the model, and I've been away for the last couple of days, so I haven't really taken a look at this, so I wouldn't mind some more time to
Okay.
look at it.
All right,
I think that was pretty different than the rest of them. It said if within 30 days they haven't filled that seat. Right, let's say that the election just happened, right, and then somebody within a month drops out, and there's a vacancy. Then the town council can appoint someone, but if within 30 days they don't appoint someone, then they have a special election. So that was a little bit different than I think than what we saw in the other town council charters.
okay. All right,
Because what if they can't find anybody? I guess is my question, right? If they can't find anybody to appoint, or they refuse to appoint somebody, or they just, there's no deadline to do that, does that then?
So that would only really address it, and if they can't find anyone to appoint because nobody wants to do it, that's not gonna get solved with a special election.
That's
right?
true too. But I'm thinking like though, if they refuse to fill it, right? Doesn't that
If,
kind of
if they're
give?
just in disagreement and they can't
Right,
agree,
doesn't
then
that sort of give them,
Right,
it gives them a time frame
Yeah.
to say you have to fill this or else we'll fill it for you.
yeah.
Or agree on someone, like you said, right? That they have to,
I just think the special election only comes up if the town council can't make a decision on who to put in there.
Right, so that's what the 30
Yeah.
days probably makes sense, yeah.
Or refuses.
Yeah, or refuse it. They
Yeah.
don't have, if there's disagreement, they don't refuse it, let the town decide who they want to put in there.
Yeah,
But if there's nobody for either of them, the special election isn't
You're
solving
right,
anything,
right.
like you said. We're still in the same boat, and then what, town council's appointing them anyway? They couldn't do it in 30 days, and they didn't do it with the special
or if
election.
somebody comes forward and they say, no, we don't want you,
Right.
right?
Then they can run.
And then they can run
Yeah.
for a special election.
I personally would like to vote after we decide which we're gonna do. That's my take on it, on the vacancy part.
okay.
okay, so we're gonna table filling of vacancies.
David, did you have something on that? Is that why you wanted to get to it? Oh.
No,
Just
actually,
curious.
now I'm regretting I brought it up. Yeah, I wanted to make sure it was covered, that was all.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't want to not cover it, but.
Yeah.
Saw something going around, but I didn't know what it was.
Not sure. but we have one.
Keith, what is the handout?
That was from my units.
Oh, is this when we get into the town manager?
Yeah, I just wanted.
Got it,
Those
okay,
are the
thank you,
other-
sorry. It only made it that far, and I was wondering what was going around.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to table filling of vacancies until next meeting. If you could look into that, everybody do your homework and be prepared to discuss and vote next week, that would be great. Okay, moving on to town manager. Some of this will be easy. Oh, sorry. One of the things that I wanted to ask, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump back. With respect to the town council president, did anybody identify something different or unusual that they wanted to include in there that we had not discussed? I didn't think so. I think you would have brought it up. Okay, sorry. Moving on. Okay. Okay, so one of the things I think with respect to appointment, we're probably going to need to add into our agenda is it needs to be appointed by town council. One of the things that Lauren asked us to think about, and I had not, was it's not enough just saying a majority. And in some cases, so you could just have a plain majority, which means a majority of the people who are attending, majority of the full council, so in the case of 9, it would be 5, in the case of 7, it would be 4, meaning everybody has to be there and vote, or 2/3. So with appointment, most of the guidelines that I saw just simply required, in some cases it was just a majority, and in some cases they specified a majority of the full town council.
This is for town manager.
Yes, this is the appointment of the town manager.
I would go with the majority of the full council, because you don't want to have just barely a quorum and a majority of that quorum appoint the town manager.
Yeah,
I agree fully
I
with
agree,
that,
with
yeah.
such a strong position.
yep, same. And it'll be the same regardless of whether we go with 7 or 9.
Want an eye on that?
What's that?
We vote on it?
We're all in favor of that?
Yep.
Okay. Again, I think we're going to probably give Lauren the list that we've gone through and said, here, we think this is what we want, and let her write it up. So, right now it states the Board of Selectmen shall appoint a town manager from a list prepared by a screening committee, and the screening committee we'll have to talk a little bit about. But the Board of Selectmen shall appoint the town manager to serve for an indefinite term. The model charter states that they are appointed for an indefinite term, and it discourages contracting for a specific term or setting an arrangement that reduces the town council's ability to be able to remove a town manager. So what we have seems to be consistent, other than the appointing authority doing the job. If everybody is in favor of keeping it for an indefinite term to be negotiated by the town council at that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the part you said, though, like, there's removal procedures that are in?
It just said for an indefinite term, allows the most flexibility, discourages setting an arrangement that doesn't allow you to remove them at will.
Okay.
Model charter just simply says the town council fixes the compensation for the town manager. Ours currently states the Board of Selectmen will do it. Shall fix the compensation for such person annually within the amount appropriated by the town. This seemed reasonable enough.
So, except for we don't do that today, right?
The town council would do it, the Board of Selectmen do it currently.
They fix the amount, but it's not based on what has been approved at town. It's already contractually agreed to.
Though, within the amount appropriated by the town, yeah, you're right.
So it goes in front of town meeting.
Right, but what I'm saying
And
is
it won't.
we've already contractually agreed to what the rate's gonna be before it's gone to town meeting for each year.
Yeah. And now it doesn't have to be appropriated by the town, it's appropriated by town council,
Right.
so.
I just think with that whole point is that, again, vote the position, because the position is what we're looking at. If, for instance, we decide that because this town manager spot is so important and we have a high list of candidates that want this position, and they, based on education and experience, that rate's gonna change, you know what I mean? I just think the town council needs to have the ability to, this is the person we want, we're gonna have to pay them, this is what we're setting the rate at.
Yeah, I think we go out with here's what our range is, depending upon what the person's qualifications, they may end up at the higher end of that range. They may need to go, say, the town council may decide, we love this person so much and they are over our high end of the range. We need to reset the range.
So I guess the question I would have to ask is, who's negotiating the contract with the town manager?
Town council.
Right, so they're the ones that are approving the funding, they're the ones that are negotiating the contract, so it makes more sense in this setting, right? The way we were doing it before was completely backwards,
Yes.
right?
Totally agree, I just think, we just absolutely need to have the town council be able to
No,
have
I agree,
the ability to
but
do
they're
this.
gonna know what they're approving, right?
Yeah.
They know what they're signing up for.
Yeah, and they'll
when
have the power.
If
to-
they're hiring, they're setting the compensation. So I think we're in agreement on that the town council
Yeah.
fixes the compensation.
Yep.
And we'll let Lauren pretty it up however she'd like. With respect to qualifications, so it gets into kind of generic terms and then minimum specifics, and then the residency requirement falls within here as well. So the way ours is currently written, in terms of the specifics, well, let's talk about the in general. The way ours is written right now, town manager shall be appointed solely on the basis of demonstrated executive and administrative qualifications. The model goes on to say that they hired solely on the basis of education and experience in accepted competencies and practices of local government management. And they identified that that leaves room for interpretation as needed by the town, the precise level of which is going to be different from every town. So there's somewhat of a difference. One just states solely on the basis of demonstrated executive and administrative qualifications. The other says solely on the basis of education, experience, and accepted competencies and practices of local government management. Are we in favor of one?
Sounds like the latter wording allows for more flexibility for the town council. It allows them to consider other qualifications.
Yep.
And weigh them. in
Well,
a manner that they
ours
want to.
doesn't specify any requirement for government background. It just says executive and administrative qualifications.
Can I ask a question? I mean, I feel like we're coming up with the wording,
Yep.
right? Which I thought is what Lauren was going to be doing in terms of,
Yeah, but we still are going to have to decide what
What do we want?
the qualifications are going to be.
right, but I think we kind of agreed that we want them to be open and, I mean, I guess this is where I trust her expertise, and I would rather, like, let's see what she can come up and draft, and
Okay.
then see if we're okay with that.
Sure.
As opposed to trying to wordsmith ourselves and come up with the right wording, and,
Yeah.
I mean, she probably has pretty standard
Yep.
things. These aren't really controversial items that we're talking about right now.
Are there any bare minimums that anyone feels strong and hard
That's a
about,
good
like, that
question.
we need to have in there, right?
I'd rather just have flexibility so the town council can discuss and, you know, if they have a pool of 3 to 5, 7 candidates, and I don't want all of a sudden they're saying, we really would like number 6, but it doesn't meet these, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're the
I'd
ones that
want
have to work,
flexibility.
right?
No, I agree.
I just think if flexibility allows for changes, it allows for options, it allows for things to be discussed, where if you hard set somebody on certain qualifications and you really want that person, now you're caught between this thing of saying, well, the charter doesn't allow us to go out and, you know, get this person.
No, I agree. I have to trust they're gonna pick the best candidate and not someone who's not gonna do the job when they get in the seat.
And I think that solves some of that, is the town council has the ability to set some of the compensation and go out and seek some of these people out. I also think switching to a town council is gonna open up the ability for more town managers to want to actually come here. Because I think town managers naturally are going to look at this and say, well, they're working with a town council, and I'm not open town meeting anymore, and it's gonna open up a pool of candidates that we didn't have before, especially when you're setting a bylaw of a range of salary you're offering them. I mean, why would you come from, when you've worked with a town for extended amount of times and you're doing a good job over there and you're making X amount of dollars, are you gonna take a $70,000 pay cut to come to Norton? Put yourself in that shoes. I wouldn't.
Well, we still don't have more money though, so that's.
What I'm saying is, I think, but I agree with that, but I think this position is now even more important or more,
It's more attractive
it's
to
more,
more candidates.
but I think you are going to have to pay this person. This person is going to be, in this form of government that we're switching to, this town council with a very strong town manager, you are going to have to pay this if you want the results you want. So, I think you have to have the ability for the town council to find the money, appropriate the money, do something to get the people that we need here to run the town the way it's supposed to be run.
I don't think we need to decide, it's not for us to decide, it'll be up for the town council when they get to that.
That's why I said
Yeah.
straight flexibility, let them
Okay.
decide.
All right.
Laura, are we jumping around in terms of, I thought we were talking about the role before, and now we're talking about how he's appointed, or am I?
So I've got appointment qualifications, acting, removal,
Have we
powers
gotten
and
into
duties.
his- Oh, okay, so we haven't gotten into the powers and duties yet.
No,
Okay.
no. So right now, we're still in qualifications, and the one we're gonna fight about now is the residency requirement.
Has Lauren said anything about
She
that?
did. When I talked to her, she said, you gotta decide whether you want that. She said her only, she was trying to remain neutral. In some cases it worked, in some cases it didn't. Her bias somewhat bled through. The only thing that she did say was, if you choose to have it, make sure you include the waiver.
Yeah. Because I definitely would not want to restrict ourselves.
I agree.
I'm not, it's not clear to me why that remains in
Yeah.
charters, including some of the newer ones.
Yep.
Because I don't know, I don't personally think it's an important qualification for, even after hire, to
Yep.
make them move here. And I think it would limit our ability to hire who we want to hire if we're making them, up and move.
Keith, you
It'd be
know,
hard to find somebody.
Keith, you would know,
Yeah.
you would know better. I think the last 3 to 4 haven't been,
None of them lived there.
yeah. So this isn't, I don't think, an issue that,
Yeah.
why put,
Right,
you know?
so the question is,
I
do
don't
we even
think
need to
there's a reason
have
to
it
put it
in
in
there
I don't
with
even
the
think it
waiver
needs to be in
requirement?
I don't either.
No, because I think the waiver still is going to discourage, even if there's a waiver piece in there, it still might discourage someone from applying because they know they have to go through a special process to even be,
So I
just
think-
say, forget about it, I don't want
I
it.
think all we'd say is that there is no residence requirement.
Our current
Just
charter
wouldn't
does
have
not
it.
have a
They're not
residency
limiting
requirement.
residence.
Yeah.
Yeah. The model one has it, but it allows for the waiver.
Yeah.
I see no way.
I would just as soon not have it.
No.
Okay. Okay. Removal. So the way our current charter is written, removal can take place by the affirmative vote of 4 members, meaning 4 out of 5, may terminate, remove, suspend the town manager from office. The model made a recommendation, suspend the manager by a resolution approved by the majority of the total membership of the council.
So the same amount that can hire him.
Yes. When I talked to Lauren, her opinion was it either has to be the majority of the total or a 2/3.
I think you hire him and fire him the same way. Easy.
I say majority of the total.
Majority.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't want to hire to get rid of them? Or her. I guess so.
So if it was 7 and
So
we were,
2/3 would be what? Would be,
I'll do that right now.
majority is 4 out of 7,
Majority.
or
You do
5 out of 9.
So if we had
5 out of 7.
7,
It'd be 5 out of 7.
How many out of 9?
Well, let's do-
Yeah, 2/3.
2/3 is 4.69.
So 5.
Right, so you go 5.
Yeah.
So 5, so 1.
And on
That's
9,
not bad. That's not a bad number. Increased it a little bit to let,
I kind of like the idea of 2/3.
yeah.
Yeah.
and it would be
Yeah,
6.03 with 9. Do you round down?
Yeah, I think you always go
Two-thirds-
up.
Wait, 2/3 of 9?
Well, I'm doing 0.67%.
Oh, no, 2/3 of 9 is just 6.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, 6.
2/3 sounds good to me.
I think 2/3.
I like the supermajority.
I'm fine.
You like, I'm sorry,
The 2/3, yeah.
okay.
Supermajority.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, like,
I don't feel.
Sorry, Denise.
No, I don't feel strongly about
It's
it.
only one
really.
more, right?
Yeah, it's only what's the difference of one person.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Well,
I think at that point, you're gonna
yeah.
if it gets to that,
You got to make sure it's not for, a
Political
small
reasons.
reason.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Reason, like, it's got to be for
something pretty serious.
something that has, upset most of them.
All
I don't
right.
want to make it too hard, but I don't want to make it too easy.
I also
Right,
wonder
yeah.
if that's something that a town manager will look at and see.
Yeah.
Probably.
You know,
Maybe.
If it's that
Do a
easy
good
to,
job.
if that's easy to. But they might not apply if you, I'm thinking, if they,
Right.
because
If they-
your bosses are changing constantly, right? Every year now, because we're staggering. So every year your bosses are changing.
Right.
So it's kind of it's a little bit of a weird job.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as
Yeah.
2/3 at least, yeah.
Okay. All right, with respect to the rest of the removal, it gets into quite a bit of detail. I think we'll defer to Lauren to come up with the suspension period, there has to be they have to be granted a hearing. I'm sure that's probably a lot of it is set by law. We'll have her just tell us what the most common or the ideal tenors are.
The only thing actually doesn't matter for that, sorry.
Okay. The one thing, and I don't know whether this is in here, but it's in both of our current charter and the model, is the city manager or the town manager continues to receive their salary until the effective date of the final resolution of the removal, which is
Yeah, I think
probably
that's fair.
required by law. Yeah.
So, what I was thinking of was actually removal of the legislative branch. We don't have that as an item on here, right?
That's recall, I think she has that, we have it later, recall procedures.
Yeah,
But that comes up like with everything,
Yeah.
okay,
citizen petition.
Yeah.
Mechanisms.
okay.
And that's the section
I
she's
just
going
want
to
to make sure
actually
I'm covering
read.
it somewhere.
Yeah, no, with respect to all of the other positions, it's basically within citizen participation, and Lauren said she's going to rewrite that for us anyways.
She says she's gonna rewrite, but give us a choice to.
Yeah.
Like choices within there, right?
Yes.
Like she's gonna come up with the language, but we're gonna have to decide
Exactly.
the specifics of how many signatures and all that kind of.
Yeah,
I was saying,
with
one
respect
thing-
to timing
one
and
thing I would make sure is
signatures.
that Whoever gets recalled can't rerun again.
On that same ballot.
That's
It can
right.
run later, but not on the same ballot.
You want to Fall River?
Yeah.
I am completely on board with you, and Lauren Goldberg is going to fight us on it.
Yeah, she said.
Really?
Yeah.
That it's a
She said it's
constitutional violation.
unconstitutional.
Oh.
But I say, fine, let them fight it. Let them bring it to court and let the courts decide.
She had other good points on that too. That
Yeah.
I-
But some of the
besides
ones
just
that we've
constitutional violation.
read they had to be out.
Ours does. Ours says you cannot be a candidate if you've been recalled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it.
She's saying that is not within their
Has
constitution.
it been challenged by anybody?
Well, in Fall River, what wound up happening is, and the courts didn't decide because it wasn't the question being asked. So the town council told him he couldn't run, and he fought it, and the court said, well, your charter doesn't say he can't run, so he can run. But had the charter say specifically he couldn't run, he probably would have fought that, and then the courts would have weighed in on that question.
But the specific constitutionality of having that provision hasn't been challenged yet in court.
Not
I
that
just-
I am aware of, but Lauren,
I don't know
will
what
ask
the
her, yeah.
constitutional right to run for election, like, I don't know where that would come from. But,
she can weigh in.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm listening.
I'm totally willing to be persuaded.
Yeah, like I said, she made a couple other really good points in that, of why you would want that person.
It might be a
Do we have that?
constitutional right.
What's that?
Was that in her original?
No, when she talked to us,
Okay.
when she came in as part of with
Yeah.
the town manager, she just spoke about that and, talked about the fact that we shouldn't be making our decision based on what happened
Well,
in that
that's
one
true.
place.
That's
and
true.
that basically, the part that I really agree with her is, well, if they had run a better campaign and not had two people going against your incumbent, which was stupid.
Which is
on
what
people-
happened,
Which was
yeah.
stupid on the part of the people that were running the recall campaign, right? That was completely avoidable. So that's what kind of swayed me the other way.
No, that,
And ours is actually even worse than that. They can't run for any position
For
for,
like 6 months or something.
no, years,
Oh, years.
like 2 or 3 years. Any position.
Yeah. Well, some of them get into if you were convicted of a felony, you are removed, and then you are banned
Right.
from
And
running
that-
for a period of
yeah,
time.
and I think that's accurate at the state level too.
Yeah.
But you have to actually be convicted.
Yes.
Yeah, convicted and charged.
And it actually has to be, I
Yeah.
think, a felony. It's not just
Yeah.
a,
And sometimes you have to be convicted of a crime related to your position. So, not for something completely unrelated where you could still
Child pornography is
feasibly-
great,
Right.
yeah.
You can still feasibly do your job.
That
So,
would look good in the front page of the Sun Chronicle,
Yeah.
right?
please God, don't let that happen. Okay. Going on to acting. So there's a difference between a temporary absence and a resignation or removal, or retirement. I think we'll just let Lauren, we'll defer to Lauren on what, so in the case of enacting the, she said what happens is the town manager designates their temporary replacement. In our case, the town manager does currently, but the Board of Selectmen can revoke it after 10 days.
By what percentage or majority?
It does not say, it just says may revoke. Board of Selectmen may not revoke such designation until at least 10 working days have elapsed, whereupon it may appoint another qualified town administrative officer or employee to serve until the town manager returns.
Does it
Doesn't specify how it happens.
Does it specify the pool of people the town manager could appoint? Like, can
Just says a
she
qualified
appoint her
town,
husband?
qualified town administrative officer or employee.
And does that person get paid? I'm wondering if there's something in the town manager's contract that is more specific about who they can pick, and I don't know.
I know this happened like, was it Hanson or something like that, where the town manager left, and then the Board of Selectmen appointed the current police chief
Yeah.
to act as a town manager, and then they asked him to take the job permanently,
Oh,
and then he refused.
And-
He didn't
and I
want,
can
he
see
didn't want
that.
it. I can't remember what town it was. I know
Yeah.
it was in the paper.
Stoughton just had
Was
a
that
temporary town manager, it was their town engineer, who held the position until they had.
Yeah.
until
I know it
they
was,
did
I know it was
search.
pretty local. The police chief was
Yeah.
like basically.
Yeah, this was not the
fill-in,
police
and
chief,
then-
yeah.
Because he
But I
had
can
a,
see that
he
happening.
had a degree in like public admin, so
Yeah.
they let him run it for a while, and then they actually offered him the job, and he was
Yeah.
like,
I'm done. I'm good.
that was good.
So I can see the town council or, Board of Selectmen doing it, but I'm just wondering if there are any parameters around the town manager appointing somebody to replace him or her.
Oh, I think too, I
Temporary,
think that might outline itself in the assistant town manager. If you have an assistant town manager that's working day in and day out with the town manager, wouldn't that be the person?
If you had that position, but if you don't have that position, what I'm saying, like, we don't have, we don't
Yeah, we have that.
We do have
Yeah.
that. But if you don't have the position, like.
We have an
how would you-
assistant town manager?
Mm-hmm.
You sure it's not the assistant to the town manager?
Well, I'm saying, she's assistant to town manager. I mean, there's a qualification.
There's a difference between
Yeah,
assistant
she is
to
an
and
assistant
assistant
town manager, she's an assistant to the
Yeah,
town
that's
manager.
Oh, I thought she
different.
She's a secretary,
Yes, she's an
side
Oh, I
admin.
apologize.
administrator.
So, anyway, that's an open question, like, that's a question. I'm just wondering if it's ever a problem to just give the town manager carte blanche to appoint whomever to replace them.
Well, is that why the 10 days is important then?
Yeah.
You can't appoint your husband.
Just seems.
I
awful
started a
open-ended.
Lauren list and I've lost it.
Qualified.
I can write it down and email it to you. I'll write my questions.
No, I'm just, she's going to be in the next meeting. and
Oh,
I'm just
right,
trying to
right,
think of
yeah.
things
Yeah.
that we wanted to talk about so we remember them in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
because I've found my brain's just not really working after the 2 weeks time span. All right, I'll go back and figure out it. If you happen to be reviewing the notes, Sandy, if the minutes, if you can remember specifically what we wanted to bring up
Yeah.
with her, and I'll try and keep an active list going forward. Okay, the next section is powers and duties, which, Keith, it looks like you brought something from Mr. Units. Is this the right time? This is just something he gave to you to,
He gave this to me, yeah.
all right. Regards to your question as to our current town manager, form of governance, strong town manager, I offer the following. I do not appoint the town accountant, we know that. Appointment, selectmen have 14 days to reject an appointment. 4 members vote against, it will not happen, this has never occurred. Selectmen are not allowed to participate in negotiations, they have to ratify the contracts. 40 of the current charter. Provision that the Board of Selectmen can rescind an action taken by the town manager within 30 days, action of the vote of 4 members. Public Works, 4 is eliminated, could establish a town works department.
Do we know if number 4 has ever happened?
I do not know.
No, it has never.
That didn't happen either, no?
Number 4 has never happened. Number 2 has never happened.
Okay. Nine of the current department heads, total number of hires since my tenure would be single hire. 2 fire chiefs, 3 deputy chiefs, 2 water and sewer, 3 planning directors, and 3 building commissioners. None of my recommended hires have been rejected. A rejection requires 4 of the 5 members to vote against. Okay. All right, so that's good information to have.
Just for general context, what was the precipice to this response from Mike Hughes? Did you just ask him generally, like, to list out his duties?
Yeah, I just asked him, what his daily job, hiring and appointing, and I know that Kevin brought it up a couple of weeks ago, and I really think that, as a strong town manager, I think you should be able to hire or appoint an employee, like go over with say a department head and a town manager, they interview somebody. I would think that they should be able to hire somebody and not have to go in front of the selectmen and have the selectmen have 14 days to hire the guy. I mean, I would think that if he's a smart town manager, he should be able to, they should be able to appoint an employee, instead of going all the way to the selectmen.
And I think the difference, too, is that right now, the town manager and the board of selectmen are both part of the executive branch, whereas we're now talking about a town manager with a town council. So the checks and balances is different, like the town council is still the boss of the town manager, but I feel like the town manager needs to have more autonomy from a town council, since there is supposed to be a checks and balances.
Yeah. I
My
will,
own-
sorry.
My only example, and to expound on what he's
Bless
saying.
you.
Thank you.
Where I kind of think of it is, for instance, for a department head. So, for instance, if a department head's going to be hired in town, let's say they form like civil service is different. So, say it's a civil service department. There's a assessment center or a test or whatever it may be for that position. So, civil service works out some of those inner details that, to be honest with you, town council, unless you have experience in hiring, say, a police chief or a fire chief or whatever, you're not going to know what the actual qualifications are if they're actually capable of doing the job. So unless you're going to sit in on these meetings and have interviews and all this other stuff, some of this stuff gets worked out before it ever gets to the appointment of even the town manager. So an assessment center happens, they find that this person is the best suited for the job. They interview with the town manager. He may take the top 3. He interviews with the town manager. The town manager decides that this is the person they want to hire. I think then bringing it again to the town council to say, approve this, I think is redundant and is really, in my opinion, unless you have a specific people on that board that are going to be able to weigh in on the intricacies of appointing this department head, that's why you hire a town manager to go through these processes and then do it. If
Right.
they're not making the right appointments, then the town council holds the town manager.
Yeah, and the town council is not supposed to be running the day-to-day operations of the town. It's supposed to be the town manager. So I think the town manager should have a significant power in hiring and firing, because they're the ones.
And it was the exact same thing that the town manager in Bridgewater brought up, like, what if the department head wants to meet with the town council? Well, I may or may not, like, that's what should be done, because they are the ones that are reporting to, the town department head should know exactly who their boss is. Who's my boss? I report directly to the town manager. Now, if there's a question, and there's something that's, intricate things, the town council may say, hey, is there any way we can get this person in to kind of find out about the town manager? Yeah, of course, bring them in, and you're not going to keep them away from them. But I think the day and night, they should not be reporting. In this type of thing, if Keith's running the roads and the thing, he should not be having town manager answer to, and then come in to say what he's doing now with the Board of Selectmen and have to explain to them
Yeah,
again
town
what's going
council is
on.
going to be completely different.
Exactly.
I don't think it should be the same relationship.
Exactly. I don't think we should make it so the fact that there's too many bosses and there's too many people of who actually is reporting to it. We've got too much of that now. So switching to this town council, let the town manager be the boss of these department heads. If need be, the town council can make a suggestion or make a recommendation that maybe we can bring them in to talk about a specific thing. But other than that, the day-to-day operations of the town manager handles and they appoint those positions. Because they're ultimately the ones that are responsible for them, and they are going to have to answer the town manager why. The town manager's gonna have to answer to the town council on why they made a mistake if this person's screwing up.
What does the model charter say?
So,
So it actually has a good.
Thank you for bringing that
I like-
the model charter has a very, very, very short list, and nowhere within it does it provide any other body, including the town council, to weigh in on or rescind.
But did you notice the piece that they said the town manager may authorize administrative officers subject to the manager's discretion?
Which number?
This is the very first one. This is where they talk about appointing and suspending and removing all city employees and appointed administrative officers.
Yes.
Provided for under this charter. Blah, blah, blah. And then it says the city manager may authorize any administrative officer subject to the manager's discretion and supervision to exercise these powers with respect to subordinates in that officer's department, office, or agency. I kind of like that piece.
I like that too.
Because it
So
gives
that's-
them the option to say, hey, I trust you, you're the department head, you.
Hire
you
your own
hire
people.
own.
Yep, I agree.
And they don't have to, they can still,
Yeah.
if they don't, you know.
So yes, but with respect to any authority of the town council to review, rescind, an appointment by the town manager, it does not specify that within its current list of duties and powers.
Yeah. I kind of see that as an overstepping of
Yeah.
the legislative branch's
So that
duties.
does leave the
Exactly.
question,
Agree.
though, I agree from the perspective of employees, department heads. Within Amherst, it breaks down that Amherst has the authority to review and rescind, but it breaks it down between department heads and multiple member body appointments made by the town manager. So as we move forward, town council will not be the appointing authority for multiple member bodies. It will be the town manager. Do we want to allow him that absolute authority for appointments to boards, commissions, committees?
I guess it depends on which ones are appointed and which are elected. So which ones are we talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, North Attleboro has, for department heads and multiple member bodies, but not for officers, subordinates, employees, a 21-day wait period.
Yep.
So, you know, we could put it in for certain, that wait period, and the veto rights in for
Yeah.
certain things if we felt strongly about.
The only thing with that is it going to get to the point where they appoint a department head?
I'm not saying I
No.
agree with the department heads, I'm just saying
The
that
commissions
they're,
and-
Oh, just for the-
that they sort of distinguish who they have a right to veto, basically, within those so many days.
Yeah, so we might want to consider
So,
those.
Just so I understand this, so if they
Commissions
appoint,
and committees
Yeah.
outside.
just I want to clear this up, if they appoint, the town manager appoints a multiple member body,
So like Concom,
yep, the town council has 21 days
in this one, yeah.
to bring it up. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, to say, no, we don't want.
So the town manager has to notify the town council of the appointment, and that starts the clock. And they have 21 days.
It's like what we do now for
14
everybody,
days, yeah.
right? But yeah, we could change it to 14 days, but it's what we do. But now we would just, if we want to, just apply it to.
Now, what they could also do is bring it up for discussion, so the town council can bring it up for discussion. We have this appointment by the town manager of X person for Concom.
And waive it.
And, yeah, they can vote to accept it immediately and go back to the town council and the town manager and say, you're
Well,
good.
that's my only fear, is that we're going to be doing the exact same thing we're doing now, is he's making these appointments, we're waiting the 14 days, and then he's coming in and waiving it every time.
Right, but there's no implications with regards to salary. These people aren't getting paid, these are
totally-
just
yeah, I agree.
volunteers.
As long as we just don't do it for the people that
The
are actually
employees,
responsible for
yeah.
for the-
Yeah.
Because that's just going to make more red tape and.
It's just hard to hire somebody if they don't.
You don't know who
if
your
they're
boss
gonna
is.
be
Yeah.
Approved.
We have people right now that have technically multiple bosses because they're reporting to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Just
it
can't
is,
do
it
that.
is very interesting to, again, to think about, because, you know, like the big debate right now is Water Sewer Commission, right? Do we want to make something like that appointed?
Yep,
But now the appointing authority would be your town manager.
town manager.
And so the argument now has been, well, the Board of Selectmen would have more authority or power if they were appointed versus elected. The town council wouldn't have any more authority over a board, any board, right? if they were
Unless we allowed
appointed.
that
Right.
provision.
But even if we did, they wouldn't really be answering to them, right? They'd be answering to town manager.
Right, because they're going to be part of the executive branch.
Right. I mean, it's kind of an interesting.
Which is
way
what
of-
they are now, but.
Right.
So I'm
Board of Selectmen
confused.
is-
So we are proposing leaving employees out, that water and sewer is a appointed multiple member body. It now becomes appointed by the town manager. Do we want to give the town council the authority to rescind that appointment within X period of time?
Right, I'm just saying that it just changes the dynamic of who these boards are answering to.
Yes.
Kind of separate, you know,
Yeah.
thought I just had about how a lot of the arguments we've had for making things appointed,
Yeah,
and giving that accountability back to the Board of Selectmen, to the elected body, right? Now, that's not, no matter what we do,
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen. which is
well, we
interesting.
do, it does come back to the elected body by the use of a rescission provision.
Right. I'd like some more time to think about it because I.
But they can't get rid of them, can they?
Yeah, they can
Within the
reject,
14 days, they can say, we don't approve the appointment. Can they get rid of them?
Yeah.
yeah, they can rescind the appointment.
Have it here.
within the 21 days.
Yeah,
No, I'm saying,
Or reject
let's say
the
they've been in,
appointment.
they've been in for a couple years, right? Can they?
oh, an
take it- can they
existing,
take it
a
back?
removal of an existing.
They can't take it back, can they?
I don't think so. I haven't seen anything. No, I don't know. I can't say I've seen anything, but I can't say definitively. It may have just be I haven't seen it.
I can't find it right now, but I thought Lauren had given us a table that sort of broke down like what to consider when thinking about elected versus
Oh,
appointed.
that wasn't Lauren, that was me from a
That was
couple
you.
meetings ago.
And I actually found that really interesting.
Got it here.
And
So just so I understand, I just want to make sure I get it clear. So we saying that the town manager has the authority to appoint all hired positions, or the department heads, and then the department heads hire?
That is what Sandy is proposing. That's
Well,
what the
I'm-
model charter.
It says they have he or she has the option to authorize a department head to hire his or her own.
Doesn't have to.
But they don't have to. He
so
can
we
hire them
wouldn't
all.
necessarily be
I was
deciding
gonna say,
that.
I'd almost prefer that the department head hire their own. and
I
that
would too.
He's not hiring everybody.
Yeah,
Well, we usually
Well-
do that anyways.
I mean, he's the one who's hired by the town council, so ultimately, he's the backstop. So I think it should be his decision whether or
Yeah.
not to grant that authority to his department. Like, he might, you know, you might have a great department head who's not necessarily great at, you know, hiring, I don't know.
But my fight with that would be is, why'd you appoint him as a department head?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I would hope they
if
would.
you-
But I wouldn't want to write it into the charter that department heads get to hire their own people. I'd rather, like, give the power to the town manager.
To decide.
And say,
Listen to me.
you decide.
yeah, a police
Exactly.
chief should be able to
Yeah.
hire his own
Exactly.
officer.
I'm just saying-
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. If you give, as long as you allow the town manager to push some of that power to the department
Right.
heads, if that's what happens, then that's what needs to happen, because
I
if
like the way
not.
this is written.
Yeah.
Exactly. The town manager, no offense, a town manager may not have the time and the energy to now look into every single department, police, fire, through the thing and say, yeah, okay, that's a good, like, that's what you put department heads to run the budgets, to run the numbers, to do the stuff.
I get the applications, we go through 3 or 4, 5 of them, and I pick 3. And Mike, I want to talk to you. I found 3 people I'm interested in, and I'll bring them in his office, you know, one at a time, and we'll interview them. And he'll say, which one do you like, or whatever. And I'll say, this guy's qualified or she's qualified, and that's.
Do you make the offer, or does Mike make the offer?
I basically put it together.
Okay.
It depends what, you know.
And has your recommendation ever been the one that was not selected?
My recommendation, they usually go with my
What-
recommendation.
Yeah.
So, has he always, like, if you said, I want X person, has that always been the person that he's gone with?
If I want, yes. It's what happens, you get a chart, how much
Yeah.
you can, what the pay scale is. So it
Yeah.
depends what license they have, or what they're coming to town for, and then I'll say, I want to start them off in the third position. And so he'll either agree with me or we'll argue about it.
Yeah.
And we'll come with the decision.
Okay, but it's a working conversation, yeah.
Yeah, I think I want to noodle it just a
Yeah.
smidge, because
I think it depends on the department.
I'm struggling with giving that much authority to the town manager without having any, I'm not saying that the oversight, that he shouldn't be able to hire those people, but without having anyone even kind of just looking at who are the candidates, how did you
Yep.
choose it?
So the model charter's guidance
Eight-
on that was the town manager is responsible and reports to the town council at will, and they can be removed at will. And that's your
What is it?
authority.
Just you can get rid of the town manager. If you
You
don't
can-
like who he's hiring, you don't like what he's doing, you don't like, you're giving him all this authority, but your recourse is that
You can
the
fire
town
him at
council
will.
can get rid of him.
My question for Denise would be,
But what we have here and what's in the contract are two different things.
But you can still get rid of, it's just usually a cost, right?
Yeah.
my question would be is, what do you want to see then if you don't want to give the town manager the power to say, to hire the employees?
I don't know, that's why I said I want to noodle it a little bit.
Yeah.
I just want to think about, I just think there should be some kind of oversight. Ideally, in an ideal world, if we had an HR person, right, we'd have an HR person that's kind of filtering through these and kind of just overseeing what it is, who he's hiring, who the candidates were that he was considering, and just making sure that everything seems,
Yeah, but the HR person was hired by the town manager.
But
yeah, but that's,
my only thing my argument would be for the town manager to be able to make all the appointments. So the fact is that if you're letting him appoint a department head, and then you're running the department, there's so many other things that go on within civil service, whether it be fire department, the police department, all that other stuff, that these things are getting worked out before they get to that.
I'm not focused on fire or police, those are not my concern areas, it's these walls here more than anything else.
All right, well, pull
But I know,
up,
but you can't, what are you gonna say? You're gonna say,
I gotta think about it, I don't know.
Yeah.
On this issue, what I like about it, the town manager having the power and authority, is I like the notion of the buck stops here, right? It has to be one place where that authority ends, and if you're answering to more people, you lose that. You lose where does that power end, and who do I answer to, and who's the ultimate? I feel like you'll just expand that responsibility.
Could you put
Blur
it,
those lines.
could you put it, like, would you make you happier if the department head was involved, or is that not even an issue? I'm wondering if you could put in consultation with, like sort of force a discussion. I think I would hope most good town managers would talk to the department heads and work with them, but could you put that language in the charter that, they have that discussion with the
the
department?
department head has the discussion with the town manager
About
before
who their subordinates would be.
making a hire.
Is that what happens?
not really.
Isn't that what
Yeah,
happens
except
already?
I
Or
still
do
would
they
prefer
just-
to not have
they
that,
just-
like, so rigid in the charter. Like,
No, I would agree. I
Um,
think that.
I think you just put it in there that you let the town manager decide whether or not he or she.
Right,
wants to
that's,
give-
I like the way that
Yeah,
that's
give
written.
the
Yeah.
authority.
Yeah.
If they hire a department head and they say, I like this department, I like the way they hire and do, like, they're able to delegate that responsibility to that department to let them do it. If they say, I'm hiring this department head because they were, very good at doing this specific thing, but they may not, like you said, may not be good at hiring, I may take on that responsibility.
Right.
But because I'm in charge and I'm gonna make that determination, let them make the determination. If they do a bad job, the town council can then go directly to the town manager, nobody else, and say, we do not like the appointments you're making.
And I do want to think about that, the rescission provision, because I think we need to be careful about how we balance the responsibilities between the legislative and the executive branch. Because because the town council isn't the same thing as the select board.
Yeah.
So,
And the town council with probably, unless we pull in some power that they are not normally given, will not really have any appointing authority.
right, no, I was talking about that, we were talking about maybe having it for the boards and commissions, and so I really want to think about that, make sure that we make the right decision and.
Yeah, well, it
and-
can't happen on anybody that's elected, so it would only be the
Right,
appointed ones.
appointed, yeah.
You wanted me to pull out this, did you have a specific question?
No, I just, that, it reminded me that we have that,
Got
and
it.
so that's why I wanted to take just a little bit more time to think about what kind of power we want the town council to have on the appointments, and remind everybody for when we get to that point, because I thought I had some great consideration points.
Okay. All right, this gets a little unwieldy because ours is very, very, very wordy. Where the model charter says it in 2 sentences, we have 4 different clauses kind of related to the same thing. With regards to appointing and entrusting within the administration of town personnel, and to be able to inquire into the conduct, and the model gives very broad authority and very little guidance, where ours gets into some significant detail. So I don't know
wonder if
whether.
that's because we have a select board.
What's it say for the model for the town manager?
So you want me to read through the
Sure.
town manager's duties? So, first one is appoint and suspend or remove all employees and appointive administrative officers provided for by or under the charter, except as otherwise provided by law. This charter or personnel rules adopted pursuant to this charter. The city manager may authorize any administrative officer, subject to the manager's discretion and supervision, to exercise these powers with respect to subordinates in that officer's department, office, or agency. That's number 1, and that is about the wordiest it gets. 2 is to direct and supervise the administration of all departments, offices, and agencies of the city, except as otherwise provided by this charter or by law. 3, attend all town council meetings. Town manager shall have the right to take part in discussion, but shall not vote. 4, see that all laws, provisions of this charter, and acts of the town council, subject to enforcement by the town manager or by officers subject to the manager's direction and supervision, are faithfully executed. Prepare and submit the annual budget and capital program to the town council. Implement final budget approved by council to achieve the goals of the city. Submit to the town council and make available to the public a complete report of the finances and administrative activities of the city as of the end of each fiscal year. 7, make other such reports as the town council will require concerning operations. 8, keep the town council fully advised as to the financial condition and future needs of the city. 9, make recommendations to the town council concerning the affairs of the town and facilitate the work of the town council in developing policy. 10, provide staff support services for the town council president and council members. 11, assist the town council to develop long-term goals for the cities and for the town and strategies to implement these goals. 12, encourage and provide staff support for regional and intergovernmental cooperation. 13, promote partnerships among council, staff, and citizens in developing public policy and building a sense of community. And finally, number 14, perform other duties as are specified in the charter or may be required by the town council. So even the last 4 are more aspirational as opposed to directory. Ours goes on for quite a while.
Yeah, ours talks about town buildings.
Yeah. procurement officer, and I compared it with other, well, I only got through North Attleboro, but North Attleboro has a lot of this same jurisdiction over the rental and use of town facilities, inventory.
I don't know that we have to specify that in a charter, though, because that would be part of his day-to-day
I don't know why
operation.
it's there,
Like,
yeah.
I think it's a question for Laura.
And it could be left over from their town meeting and select board, too, because, again, the select board is operating very differently than the town council would, in that they're the same branch of government as the town manager. But I haven't had time to look at the model, so.
Yeah.
But it does seem to be very, like, prescriptive.
It's interesting,
Yeah.
because, I mean, North Attleboro, that was when you said, right, North Attleboro?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they
have a lot of
charter
the-
before.
yeah.
That was their first
Ah.
charter.
And they have a
voted
lot of
for
them.
it. So it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting that she put all that, I mean,
Yeah.
that could have
Yeah.
been their decision too, obviously.
same thing with regards to the rental and use of the town, the inventory, procurement. Yeah, the one thing I found interesting in ours is listed under duties is the specification that the Board of Selectmen can rescind it, which I don't know why that's in as a duty. It's not a duty.
Right.
That should be within the Board of Selectmen's
Yeah.
section of the charter. It's not really a power or a duty.
Yeah.
We can bounce some of those questions off.
Yeah. They may be here for a reason.
Yeah, it does sound like some, not all, but some of the provisions in the model cover some of the things that we have
Yeah.
spelled out.
Yeah, where they matched up, I did kind of do a one-for-one.
Yeah.
And certain ones do match up very nicely, but we have significantly more than,
Oh, yeah.
even taking into
There's just-
account the last four of the model are more aspirational than actually
Yeah.
functional. We have just so many more than they do. By a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we have 4 clauses to basically state what they state in one.
So is it a matter of us deciding what we think even needs to be in there?
I think probably this is going to be we should probably look at, understanding that we had to come to town meeting to discuss the duties and powers of the town manager. Did anybody see anything in our current town that we would want to change? And I think we've discussed it a little bit with regards to the town, manager having the authority to give their department heads the authority. And one of the things we've also talked about is the ability of a town council to rescind, and whether that envelops just the multiple member bodies, or I think we are sort of, maybe we're not, I forget where we last stood on the department heads. I think somebody was concerned about giving up that.
Yeah, I think Denise just wanted some more time to
Okay.
think about that, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Right.
so, like,
Yeah.
first surprise,
Yeah.
most folks didn't want the right to rescind.
With respect to department heads,
And just employees, generally.
yeah.
I just wanna make sure that
Yeah.
I know where everyone's,
Yeah.
But then considering it for boards and committees.
so for the non-paid positions. We're
That
okay
was-
with rescinding, but for the paid positions, we don't want to be.
I wanted some more time to think about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want, okay.
Yeah.
Was there anything I didn't find anything lacking based on the model. There's probably some things I would chop out or streamline or broaden. Was there anything else?
It also might be a good question for Lauren, if she's coming to the next meeting, to just say, how how much detail do we need, you know, I think we had this discussion last week that we all agreed we should have a strong town manager. So
Yep.
how important is it to really list out every single possible thing he or she needs to consider on, you know, to operate the town on a day-to-day basis? Or can we be a little more broad, with, like some of the language in the model? Yeah, right, like, I don't, because I'd worry about being too specific and hamstringing that person, so.
I just think we have to give them the ability to do what they feel is best, because they were hired by the town council.
Right, they are supposed to be running a
Exactly.
town,
And if
so
they're not
they
running-
should have the, and we're not gonna get anybody who is coming in and doesn't have the authority to run
Yeah.
their departments the way
Let
they
them,
want to.
you know, the way I look at it is let them steer the ship the way they believe it should be going, and let town council decide whether or not that direction is for the best interest of the town. If it's not, the town council can look to remove or fire him or her, or be done with it. You know what I mean?
Okay, so we've talked about powers and duties, appointments of and qualifications, which we did decide no residency requirement. Removal, we talked about how many it's going to take. And acting town manager procedures, I think we decided to defer to Lauren. So I think we've covered everything that we need to at least discuss within the executive branch that would go specifically under that section. Is there anything else anybody wanted to talk about?
Not with respect to.
Okay. All right, moving on, we should probably talk about so this was built kind of in the order of the agenda. It does not necessarily mean we have to take things in this order. Given that we have Lauren for next week, do we feel that discussing a finance committee during her attendance is the best use of her time, or do we want to move maybe to another section where we require more guidance?
I actually think she'd be helpful with the finance committee, because it's such
I
a,
think
it's such a
so, too.
different, that's gonna shift, right? That's gonna change from what we have now.
Yeah.
So, kind of talking about options and roles, right? Not just, it's great to say you want a finance committee or you want a subcommittee, but what's their role gonna be?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think we can start with some of the questions we've already identified for her.
Yep. Okay, all right, so we'll leave that. All right, so for the next meeting, I recommend, one, looking at I don't think actually, does the model charter, it doesn't really get into any, excuse me, committees of any kind. And I'm not sure if, it talks about the budget process, but not specifically about a finance committee.
I think I remember Warren, or maybe it was when the visitors were here talking about a finance committee being a subset of the council.
Yeah, so my yeah, and that happened in a few of the town council charters that we looked at. So I guess my recommendation is obviously refer to the model city charter and see if there's anything in there. I don't
Yeah.
remember if there was.
I do feel like one of them came in and talked about there being like a remnant, like a citizen,
That was Bridgewater.
was it Bridgewater?
Yeah.
Bridgewater said they had a finance committee, but it was
Did they have no voting?
useless, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
No voting.
Yeah.
He said he didn't
It was a
even- he said he didn't go
compromise
to 'em.
to
Right.
get the charter
Right,
passed
right.
and.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've looked at 4 town council form of government charters. My recommendation would be read through those just to identify what the similarities and differences between the two are with respect to a finance committee. And also, I ask that you keep in mind that that's gonna be a different discussion from the budget and financial procedures of the town.
Yeah.
Is that fair? Okay. I'll try and put my notes together so we have a list of things that we wanted to. If you think of something, well, she's going to be here, you can just bring it up, but I'll try and have a list of things that we wanted to remember to ask her about that came up in tonight's meeting. And otherwise, we're going to vote on the finishing pieces of the legislative branch. We will wait to vote on the executive branch until we have draft wording that we're all comfortable with, and then vote on it in its entirety, if everybody's comfortable with that. And for the next meeting, we'll discuss the Finance Committee. Any other, did we hit everything on the agenda?
I just had a question.
Yes, sorry, go
So,
ahead.
So when Bridgewater, was it East or West? Bridgewater that came in?
Wasn't it?
West.
Plain Bridgewater?
Oh, I think it was plain.
Plain.
Yeah.
Anyway, when when the town manager from Bridgewater came in, he, so they went from town meeting to town council, and he talked about some sort of lessons learned and some bumps in the road that they could have anticipated but did not. I would really like to ask him what those, to specifically identify them.
Did you read his charter? It pretty much spells out what the problems are. It's a-
In the charter itself?
It's a mess. It's an absolute mess.
And that was the revised charter.
Yeah, it was a crime scene. I stopped reading it halfway through, I was so angry.
Because he talked about, like, it could have been solved by, like, preparing bylaws, so I didn't think it was yes, there are problems in the charter, but I sort of wanted to
It
talk
was
to him
not
more
well
about,
planned. The whole process
like,
did not appear to have been
what would have
well
made it
planned.
easier.
I think the transition, what it sounded like he was saying was the transition plan was crappy, right? That wasn't really
Yeah.
well spelled out and
So-
really wasn't well done.
And like they came, so, and I know some towns have had like a bylaw committee between the charter, acceptance and the installation of the new government. So anyway, I was just curious to find out more information from him about what might have made it easier so that we could learn from somebody who's gone through it versus,
Are
making
you
up.
volunteering to reach out to him?
I would be happy to do that.
Thank you. I think Sandy knows how to get a hold of him.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I was just looking at my notes, and he wasn't very specific. I don't think.
yeah.
Right, I wanted to have a
writing
meet,
down.
like, I wanted to have like a full meeting just with him to like
Yeah.
grill him on everything, but.
Yeah, I suspect he'd be very willing to sit down with you.
I'm thinking Lauren's gonna have a lot of those pieces of helping us put together a nice transition plan to have.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of those
I just-
parts that are, yeah.
Because of the way he said it, I was very curious to hear from the town manager's perspective rather than,
Right.
in addition to Lauren's perspective, because I know she'll have some great
I think they're
advice.
the ones who just basically took charter, like pieces of charters from
Yeah.
everybody else and just popped them
It
into their
did.
charter. And didn't really, it didn't seem to have
Was-
like town council, like somebody helping them to even, I can't imagine how a lawyer would let all that go. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
competent lawyer anyway.
Yeah. All I remember is being very, very angry reading it. And
What?
I just remember being very, very angry reading that charter.
Yeah, I remember not really appreciating the charter, but I was more interested in, since he went in and had to
Yeah.
deal with it,
Hearing directly
like,
from
what was it?
the horse's
you
mouth,
know,
I think would be.
specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Okay, great.
I just wanted permission, I wanted permission to go talk to you.
Permission granted and encouraged. All right, does anybody else have anything that they would like to talk about? Anybody need any additional research, want to talk to anybody, need any more information than what we've got currently, as in if we find more things? Yeah, Sandy happened to find this group right after our last meeting, was just like, wait, and there's this, and look, there's this. I was like, well, wish we had some of this, specifically the guide to the charter commissions back like 10 months ago. That would have been really nice. But again, I wanted to just emphasize Chapter 3 in particular gives you a good idea of high-level, broad picture things to think about when developing the charter or revising a charter. So it's not that long. I don't even think it's 20 pages total, but it's good reading. And there's some good information in there. So if you have a chance, I recommend it.
It's in the Dropbox.
I put it in the Dropbox. Yeah, the whole thing is in there, but if you want to just focus on chapter 3, you're probably great. 1 and 2 gets into why a charter commission and what does a charter commission do? We'll probably pass that.
I think we're well-versed.
Exactly. Any other items for discussion this evening? Did I hit everything? Sorry. Yeah, we're good. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion pass. We're adjourned.